Fine to start.
Yes, I just started recording, so
Okay,
yeah, we can start with the administrative.
sure. All right, well, good evening and welcome to the July 19th, 2021 meeting of the City of Charleston's Design Review Board. My name is Erica Chase, the board's chairperson. The members of the board with us tonight are Dina Sliolio, Andy Smith, Aaron Stevens. Michelle Smith and Jeff Johnston should be joining us shortly. The members of city staff present are David Meeks, Andrea DeRungs, Tori Parrish, and Frankie Pinto. We do not have any board members that are recused from any agenda items, and we do not have any items that have been deferred. The order of the meeting will be as follows. David will give an introduction and project context overview for any new projects. Then the applicant team will have time for their project presentation. We do typically limit those to 10 minutes, but given the virtual meeting protocol, we are a little bit flexible on that time. If you do think you will need time well beyond 10 minutes, please let us know at the start of your presentation. Everyone presenting should clearly state their name for the record. Then we will open up the meeting for board questions and then public comments. I don't believe we have any members of the public registered to speak tonight, nor did we receive any public comment letters. Then David will give city staff recommendations. Then the applicant team may respond or clarify to city staff comments and public comments. There's a 5-minute time limit here. Then we will enter into board discussion and a motion. During board discussion, the applicant may only clarify inaccurate information when recognized by myself or one of the board members, and they may only speak if asked a question by myself or one of the board members specifically. If everyone could please silence or turn off all cell phones or any devices that would make noise during our meeting. And again, I'm not going to cover anything regarding public comments because we do not have any members of the public registered to speak, nor did we receive any letters. So specific to our virtual meeting protocol, David will be controlling the PowerPoint presentation, which includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. The applicant team will need to ask David to advance to the next slide during your presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members should give their name whenever speaking. The video and microphone have been disabled for all attendees. Attendees will only be given the capabilities to speak when they are called on during the public comment period. The chat and the Q&A functions have been disabled for everyone. Staff will issue meeting results, including staff comments and board motion to the applicant following the meeting. And results will also be posted on the city website, which is the city's webpage, /DRB. And for additional information, you can contact David. His email address is on the website, along with visiting the DRB website on the City of Charleston's webpage. And I do want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. So with that, we'll get started with item number 1, 1310 Meeting Street, requesting approval for 2 completed mock-up panels for the proposed multi-tenant residential commercial building.
Thank you, Erica. Before I turn it over to the applicant, I just wanted to show a little context where the mock-up panels are located. You can see on the map the red thumbtack. It's just north of Mount Pleasant Street, which is the start of the DRB purview. And then a little closer image, it's right off of Magnolia Cemetery and adjacent to Santee's Restaurant. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. This is the image of the completed proposed building. And let's see, that is going to be, I believe, Ryan Tremble and Steve Barton. If you can hear us.
And David, I think Michelle's on, if you can embed her as an attendee.
Okay.
Or a panelist.
Frankie, if you heard that, Michelle Smith needs to be let into the panel, please. You all are seeing the images, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And I think Ryan Trimble needs to be let in as a panelist as well.
Okay, let me see if I can help. Oh my gosh, I need to make you host. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm doing that right now. Sorry about that. I forgot to make Frankie a co-host, so apologize. Give me 1 second here.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Michelle. Sorry about that.
I apologize for being late. If you're late, you get stuck in Zoom purgatory.
I'm looking for Ryan Trimble. I'm not seeing him on here. Did you say you saw that?
I did. He's at the top, David, at least on
Oh,
my
thank
screen.
you. I thought it was alphabetical. I apologize.
He put his hand up, so I believe he's.
Okay, there you go. Okay, Ryan, you should be okay now.
Okay, hello, this is Ryan Trimble. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
We
can.
can.
Great. I'll see if I can
Ryan,
you here
can I
too.
interrupt? Ryan, is there anybody else that's not with you that I need to let in?
This is Ryan Trimble with Axiom Architecture. I've got Steve Barton as well with Axiom. I believe Richard Gow with LS3P may also be on the list, and Beach Carontes with LMC.
Great. Yeah, I had them on my list, but I'm not seeing them here. But if you could go ahead and proceed, I'll keep an eye out for them.
Sure. Well,
Sorry,
thank you.
David, I see Beach, and I thought I saw Richard as well.
Okay.
He
Maybe
could be
they're
under, does LS3P have any other?
Dylan Tao, maybe
Yes.
another name.
Dylan's on there.
here's Beach. Okay. Here's Richard now. Sorry about that. No, he's here.
Hi, everybody. You have Beach Carranzas with Lennar Multifamily on as well.
Yeah. Excuse me. This is David. Oh, good. I can't talk right now. Right back. Oh, so sorry, everybody.
Okay, I think we have everyone in, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, would you like me to go ahead and get started?
Yes, please.
Okay, so thanks again. This is Ryan Trimble with Axiom Architecture. Just going to give a quick introduction to the project for those of you who may not have seen us come through the design portion. It's been a while since we've been down there. So we were in the mock-up wall approval portion, and I believe most of you were out to see the two mock-up walls last Friday. Apologize we weren't able to be there, but just a quick recap of the building you're seeing on screen here. It runs along Meeting Street. It has kind of two different design aesthetics. That's why you saw two different mock-up walls out on site. And as a reminder, we've got kind of these fingers that reach out towards Meeting Street. They are the red brick areas that you see in the rendering on screen. Those are more of a industrial design aesthetic. They were hearkening back to the warehouse look of some older buildings in Charleston. And then the back portion that you kind of see on the right-hand side of this rendering is a more modern piece that runs along the back of the property, and that these kind of three red brick areas reach out into, and it kind of recesses back away from the road. So you'll see two different courtyards here that'll be public courtyards for people to gather and interact with the retail that's on the ground floor. And then upstairs is apartments with some elevated terraces and things like that. And so I'm looking at some photos that were provided to you guys. And like I said, I think you saw these on site, but really quickly going through the red brick mock-up wall number one. That has the red of the fingers that reach out towards the building. You see the railings that'll be used on that David's got it on the screen now. You see the railing that'll be used on the balconies. This has a couple of the typical windows that you'll see in the project. It's got a canopy on it that is used on the ground level of the retail entrances. It's got one of the typical dryer vents and a light fixture that goes on at the retail area. And then it's got this fiber cement cornice that happens at the very top of the building. So the red brick, we really wanted to get this warehousey feel there and give it really deep recessed windows. And so you'll see it, the mock-up on the bottom there, you can't really tell in this straight on photo, but it's got a fairly deep, almost 12-inch, I think, recess of that window in the brick there. And then actually up above that, where the modular brick stops at the row lock course up there, is thin brick on the top floor. And we've done a lot of detailing up there to get a pretty deep return on that as well. I think it's about 6 or 7 inches. So it really looks like true modular brick continuing up there. And then we've got a channel header over the window at the top, which was one of the comments, I think, in the early design phases, to try to reduce the dimension between the top of that window and the bottom of the cornice there. One thing I will mention is there are some exposed fasteners on the Hardy here. That's a requirement of that product because of the wind speed in this area. We actually feel like that complements the warehouse aesthetic here. Same with the, or similar with the canopy on this mock-up. You'll see a light underneath that's designed to blend into the bottom of that. And then some channel edge and some exposed fasteners on the outside of that to, again, kind of harken back to the old style of really industrial feel on this mock-up wall. I'll mention this on this one. We can, maybe David, if you have the photo, the other one, we can flip to it. You can kind of see it a little better in the second photo, I think. On both mock-up walls, we did give a couple of different options for caulk. You'll see some blue tape at the bottom that indicates 2 different caulk colors. And then at the very top of the wall, you'll see there's 3 different colors of coping metal up there. Wanted to get you all to give us your thoughts on each one of those. I think we have our preferences for the caulk. We're looking for the one that will blend closest to the mortar color. The one on the left that's kind of in shadow in this photo, I think does that a little better than the one on the right, which is a little too white in this mock-up wall. And then on the top, I think we prefer that middle color there. That's a dark bronze color that really, we think, matches most closely to the color on the Hardy there. And again, now that David zoomed in, you'll see those kind of fasteners on this Hardy piece. And again, this is the mock-up that's looking at the more modern piece that's running along the back of the property. The top floor on this one is that kind of Hardy with reveal joints for a more modern look, and then a tan brick instead of the red brick with a little bit different brick detailing. The only other differences you'll see in this one is that we're showing you one of the garage louvers here that'll be used along the back of the building. You see a scupper that's used in just a few places along the edge of the terraces that are elevated. The light fixture on this one is used at the balconies instead of the retail, which is the light fixture you saw on the other one. And then again, a typical dryer vent is shown here. Both mock-up walls, last thing I'll mention is have some pavers and different concrete textures and colors that'll be used at those ground level courtyards that I mentioned earlier. Those are, like I said, shown at the bottom of this mock-up wall here. I think that's all I have to mention. I don't know, Steve, if you have anything else to add. Otherwise, I think we're looking forward to hearing your comments.
Yeah, I think you covered it.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Erica, just one quick question. At the top, at your flashing at the very top, the coping and the metal flashing, I'm sorry, I was just looking at the dimple in the metal up there. There are no exposed fasteners up in that area?
That's not the intent. You're correct. That should have a continuous cleat up there that'll get fastened in. You shouldn't see any fasteners on the coping cap itself, just on that Hardy panel.
Thank you.
I think Steve was just mentioning, I think what you're seeing a little bit there is because we were trying to show you different colors there, it does bow out a little bit, where that would not be the case on the finished product.
Mhm.
This is Andy. The exposed fasteners on the overhang, not the cement the fiber cement, but are those integral to that canopy? Are they faux or are they integral?
Those are faux bolt heads. Those are, again, looking for this, trying to get this design look of an old channel that would have been bolted on to the face of that canopy. But they're not structural in any way in this case.
Any other questions from the board? With none and no public comment, David, staff recommendations, please.
Sure, thank you, Erica. Staff observations. The 2 panels completed are well constructed and the materials presented are approved with some conditions below. Staff comment number 1, staff and board would like to see a couple more examples of color that better disappears. And we also feel that 2 cot colors should be used for the 2 different brick colors. The cot color should be a combination of the mortar and the brick color that essentially disappears from view at a distance. Number 2, some of the board members question the applied bolts on the canopy face of the west panel number 1, and if they are necessary. They were questioning if it would be a cleaner look without them. Staff would support keeping them. Number 3, there are some small gaps where the corners are. Actually, let me go to this last slide here. There are some small gaps where the corners of the fiber cement boards meet at the top of the east panel number 2 on either side of the windows. These just need to be tightened up a little bit. And that's referring to at these corners here. You can see some small gaps, pretty minor. Number 4, typically DRB does not permit exposed fasteners on the metal panels and asks for them to all be concealed. The board will discuss this, but I believe they are going to make an exception since these will only be used at the top of the 8-story building and in a consistent and intentional pattern. Number 5, staff and board supports the architect's choice of the coping color as shown in the middle example at the top of east panel number 2. So staff does recommend approval of the mock-up panel with the conditions noted.
Thanks, David. Ryan, did you or your team have any clarifications or responses to David's comments?
I think maybe the only one is the recommendation for the caulk color. Typically, we like to try to make those match the mortar. We feel like that goes away the best. I'm not sure. Haven't tried to blend a red brick and a gray mortar color before, but I guess just looking for a little clarification on that comment and how exactly we might go about working that out with you guys.
Okay, thank you. Now we are in board discussion and a motion. David, I didn't know if you wanted to respond to what Ryan had to say or his request for clarification, or if you wanted to let one of the architects handle it.
Yeah, I think we would be open to whatever the architects on the board recommend.
Okay, thanks. Board discussion and a motion.
This is Dino's. I would just like to echo staff's comments. What a wonderful opportunity to see a finally executed mock-up panel. We struggle with those many times. So kudos to the general contractor and to the architectural team for really putting together something very nice. Even the detailing of the angled masonry, as we can see right there, is just very well done. I guess, Madam Chair, I have one question of the architect. I'm sorry, I should have asked this before, but may I ask that question?
You're only one for the night.
The only one for the
Just
night.
kidding. I know better.
How strongly do you guys feel about the faux bolts on the metal canopy that we're looking at right here?
I would say that we think it adds a little bit, but we don't feel that strongly. If you guys feel strongly that those need to go away, I think the channel profile itself speaks mostly to what we're trying to accomplish there.
Okay. Well, that
Is that
answered
a-
my question. Thank you. And I'll,
Their
Defer.
recommendation, Dinos?
did anyone else have any comments prior? Be happy to go
I mean,
forward with the motion.
my only, this is Andy, my only comment is that, you know, we're making an exception for the exposed fasteners, you know, up top, you know, which is generally against our policy. And yeah, I would understand a little bit more, you know, if these bolts were structural part of the canopy. I think it would be as successful as a clean look without the bolts as it would with them.
Andy, did you want to go forward with a motion, my friend? Or
I just wanted to kind of, I guess, put the my concern out there. Otherwise, I would support. I think this is a very clean and very well done sample panel, and I'll support whatever direction we as members will decide to go.
Well, I would be delighted to move for conceptual approval. Excuse me, conceptual. Lord, y'all are probably shaking in your boots now. Move for approval of the mock-up panel with conditions that the staff noted, which would be item number 1, item 3, item 5, and with board comments. Number 1, eliminate the faux bolt heads on the metal canopy to provide as clean of an aesthetic as possible. Number 2 is reiterate staff's comment that typically exposed fasteners are not deemed appropriate by the board, but in this specific case, considering the aesthetic direction, that we accept the exposed fasteners as shown on the mock-up panel.
Dinos, am I okay just to keep staff comment number 4, or do you want to leave it as a board comment regarding those exposed fasteners?
It,
staff comment number 4, I was saying that I supported the bolts, but so probably the board comment, eliminate them.
No, he was talking about the exposed fasteners on the metal
exposed
panel.
fasteners up above. Yeah,
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
that's fine. Number 4 says it as well. I just didn't know if it needed to be stated, but yeah, in lieu of my comment, why don't we go with staff comment number 4.
Okay, and then did you have any more board comments before I interrupt?
I will defer to any of our board members. Anything else that I've left out?
The one question that I believe they had was if we could clarify the caulk color in staff comment number 1 and what the motion would include.
Yeah, it sounds like, since we're just talking for a moment, it sounds like that my approach would be the same as Ryan recommended I think we were looking at getting it as close to the mortar color as possible.
Okay.
And I believe that was the
Agreed.
discussion that we had at the site.
Okay.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval of the mock-up panel with conditions noted. Staff comment 1, and to clarify that the color should be a combination of the mortar color, not the brick color. Staff comments also included are 3, 4, and 5, and then board comment 1 to eliminate the faux bolt heads on the metal canopy to provide as clean as of an aesthetic as possible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is there a second?
This is Andy. I'll second.
Thanks, Andy. I will now call roll. Michelle,
Yes, in favor.
Aaron,
Yes, in favor.
and did Jeff ever make it on?
I don't see him.
Okay, and then myself, yes, in favor as well. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 2, 2947 Maybank Highway, requesting preliminary approval for the construction of a new dental office and a separate retail building.
Thank you, Erica. Just to show you where it is on the location map. Here's 2947 Maybank Highway. This is a little closer view. It's at the corner of Wilkes Battery Boulevard. And this shows an outline of the property. And just one view looking into the site, which is here. And this is looking east on Maybank Highway and south on Wilkes Battery. So with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. Matt Kennedy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, David, if you could add Jeff in, he is, I got a text from him that he is on the attendee list.
Okay. I wonder if,
Got him, David.
I'm sorry.
I got him, David.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Frankie.
And David from our team, can you add David Tomlin and Chris Waddell? Do you see them on the list?
Let me take a look. Frankie, did you hear that?
They're already in.
They
as
should be added
panelists.
in.
Yep, they're
Okay.
added in.
All right. So
And then the only other two is Peter Sherino and Tyler Sherino. They're the owners. Are they? I'm not sure if they're on or not.
they were on my list originally. You can go ahead and get started. Frankie's working on that.
Okay.
I've got Peter. I don't see Tyler. Would he
They
be
may-
logged in under another name?
They may be together. Okay. Okay.
Okay, let's get started if that's okay.
Yep. Okay, so this is 2947 Maybank Highway. It's a dental office, Oak Family Dentistry, and the second building is not necessarily a retail building. It's actually just going to be a medical office tenant space. Kind of going over the comments that we received at the last. Will you cover those, David, or should I cover that as part of my presentation?
If you want to go ahead and cover them, then I can certainly answer anything the board has.
Okay. So the staff comments we received last time was the sidewalks not being tabby, and we had agreed that they didn't need to be. The entrance drive not extending to the east property line. We had kind of said that we would like to keep shrubs there, and then future development that the client would extend that drive as needed. We made a revision to civil sheet D7, which is a note about a metal post for the signage. In terms of board comments, I think Dinos had asked us to study the base of the building in terms of materiality, which was specifically the brick base versus bringing the siding down to the grade. And although I do understand his opinion and obviously respect his opinion, the client and both us and the client feel strongly that we feel the building is better with the brick. So we kept it. Where we have lap siding, we still have the brick base, but we still do have the board and batten siding coming down to grade. The other comment was the vertical element on the west elevation. And I don't know, David, if you can go to say sheet A202 or the west elevation.
I'm sorry, did you say A202?
Yeah, it's the west elevation sheet. I think it's,
There we go.
I'm sorry. So it must be, can we go one more? Sorry.
Other way?
Yeah, there we go. Oh no, I'm sorry. Maybe it's A204. I apologize. Yeah, so the lower elevation is one we had before. And if you remember, we had kind of this vertical element that was wood siding or would be similar material kind of out in front of the building. And we had their logo or their signage there. And you guys had asked us to restudy that. There was concern about it being placed off the building and also just kind of looking at a place, maybe it was reading more like a billboard or whatnot. So what we decided to do was incorporate it into the west facade, the main building west facade, use the same materials as the two bump outs and do vertical board and batten siding and paint it the same color as you'll see in the renderings. But we still would like to have the signage because I think it's a key element there for the client to have some presence off of Maybank Highway to possibly see that. And I don't necessarily say that's a billboard, but I think it's a good place for them to have some presence because they sit 75 feet off Maybank Highway. And I think it gives them an opportunity to have some visibility. And then the other comment was the opposite side of the building on the east facade. We had that triangular element above the windows where it was a kind of a empty space. And what we did was add, which we need anyway for mechanical, we added a louver to kind of break that space up. The other comment we had was we studied the angle of the trash enclosure, which we did, and we shifted it slightly. And then we also made it where, sorry, we changed the heavy duty thickness of the trash truck of the asphalt so it's easier to access through the fire lane. And then I'll let David comment about the landscaping because that was the other comment we received, that the simplifying the palette of the landscaping. So
Sure.
David, do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. We went back through, look at the amount of species that we were proposing and reduce that. And in particular, along the facades of the building, just broke it down to one simple layer. I think it works a lot easier on our wooded side that's right beside the existing kind of pond. Just left that a little more open where the shrubs and trees can just grow into more of a native state. And especially up between our 75-foot buffer from the facade of our building up to Maybank Highway, just let it be a little bit more open planting. Then also in planting, we you'll see that we've incorporated our planting along the littoral shelves that TRC is working with us on.
And so that really addresses the comments that we received previously from staff and board. And the only other changes we really made to the buildings were we added the mechanical units. And in doing that, we added some brick screen walls so for the dental office, it's going to be kind of on the east and west sides. So we just, added a low wall to screen those. And then on the tenant building, it's the north and south ends where we added the same thing. We added small brick screen walls there as well.
Are there particular slides I should be showing as you're talking about all these things?
Yes, I apologize. So if we go to the perspective sketches. So one more, please, David. So as you can see in the top element, the top view, you can see where we've added the, I'm pointing with my finger as if you can see my finger, but the kind of the bottom left corner of that one image, you can see where we've added the screening for the mechanical units. And on the exact opposite side of the building, we also have another set of units there as well with screening. And I don't know, we have, if you look at the elevation of the tenant building, the front on elevation, you can see the screening. The screening is,
I'm not sure which slide you're talking about.
Just give me 1 second. I can't control the thing, right? You have to control it.
Right. If you could let me know which elevation or which building, I could try and find it.
I'm on the tenant building, and the west elevation would be fine.
Is this the tenant building? I'm sorry.
No, that's the dental office. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go on, please.
Okay. So, I mean, that's really just talking about the changes we made since the last presentation, ones that we covered at the office, I mean, the dental building, and then just adding the screening and the mechanical units on the tenant building. So if you look at the east elevation, that kind of shows it, kind of the back of those screens on each end, the south and north end. And then the west elevation, you would see it from the front, or from Wilt's Battery, essentially. So. And to be honest, the last thing to look at is the finishes, the colors that we selected, and that's on the perspective sketches sheet, the first one, David, that shows the kind of view of the plaza. Yes. So what we've gone with is a gray brown brick, a kind of lighter gray color for the vertical or the board and batten siding, and a light cream color for the lap siding. And then we're going with a slate gray roof, and we're just doing clear anodized windows. And then the trim on the trim would match whatever the siding color is. If it's gray, it's gray. If it's cream, it's cream. And so we've kept the colors rather simple. And then the wood stain, we're just going with a medium brown to kind of complement the brick color, and also more neutral like the grays. And that's all we have.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
This is Dinos. Just one quick question, and thank you. Thank you for all your consideration. And I think it's going to be a very handsome addition to the community. I guess the issue that I'm still looking at is the brick. And I understand the issue as far as the client, certainly appreciate their position. Have you given any consideration to a brick color or painting the brick that might more closely match the color of your siding?
I mean, we could examine a more gray brick. I mean, I think this was our first stab at, in terms of, visually what we were thinking. And the only thing I'm not opposed to painted brick. I don't like it for the purposes of maintenance in the future for the client. I'd rather find a brick color that could meet that versus painting it.
Thank you. And
Any
that's
other
all I have.
questions? Any other questions? With none, no public comment. So David, please study staff recommendations.
Sure. Thank you, Erica. Staff observations. Staff and board comments from the previous meeting have been met with a couple of exceptions that the applicant explains in the responses. The board had asked the applicant to remove the detached facade on the west elevation, but the applicants modified it to be part of the building with board and batten panels, which staff does support. The applicants have kept the brick water table, and staff could also support this as well. The landscape plan has developed nicely, and the number of species of plants were reduced some as the board had asked. More water-loving plants were added to the pond edges to replace the sod as the board had asked. And staff comment one, staff asked that the electric meters shown on the Maybank side of the building, as well as facing the inside courtyard, be moved to behind the screen walls if possible. We also asked that the screen walls height be raised some so that it screens all the utilities completely. Also, we request you add a note that all the utilities on the building exterior, such as the meters and the conduit and so forth, will be painted to match the building color we're located. The staff does recommend preliminary.
Thanks, David. Does the applicant team have any responses or clarifications from David's comments?
Yeah, we can definitely look at adjusting the location of the electrical to the suggested location.
Okay, thank you. We are now in board discussion and a motion.
This is Jeff, Erica. I have one question for the applicant. I just
Sure.
saw this on the landscape drawing. There's a standby generator on the site. And is there any detail or accommodations in the set that would show it being screened, or how's that being handled? That's a question to the applicant. If we could have that answered, that'd be great.
Jeff, are you referring to, if we could switch over to, I think L102 should have that. Yes, we've got
Correct, yep.
Standby generator, and we've got that transformer sitting out there. We're certainly buffering both with some landscaping, and except for where those transformer doors are, I've just got ground covers there, so obviously they can get to them actually on the other side where they would access it. Yeah. So otherwise, we've got buffer screening around it, set off of it a little bit so it can be maintained, but are trying to buffer it with landscape.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or motion?
Can I ask, what is, I do believe it's a very handsome design and very nice structure. I guess the sense on the rendering of the abruptness between the brick and the siding is can you go back to the color panel, David, for a moment? There we go.
I'm sorry, did you say the
color?
renderings or
Yeah, the
material?
color. I'm sorry, go down one more. Oop, I'm trying to find the color. There we go. That's what I was looking for. How do you, I mean, how do you guys feel? Any value in looking at a brick that more closely matches the color of the siding? It just seems like it's wanting to be, the way that it looks in the rendering, it's just such an abrupt change that if the brick were a little bit closer to closely matching the color of the siding, it would still give that sense of design that it seems to be trying to achieve.
Yeah, I agree, Dino.
Mm-hmm. To me, it'd be a little bit more successful because so it acts in unity and unison rather than being a kind of a separate entity that's so starkly contrasting.
Right.
Agreed.
But
I support that.
one of the things that's also I guess when you have some of these screen walls that are screening some equipment, not all, it when you have an element that's that dominant and you see it appearing on the site at different heights, it sometimes seems a little more, I don't know, it looks less designed.
Mhm.
And one of the things I'm seeing as I'm flipping through the document here is that the screen wall that's intended to screen is partially screening, and screen walls really need to screen, like the utility meters that I saw on the side, plus the generator that's kind of hanging out in space. Usually those things that are associated with buildings, utilities, and systems are screened.
Mhm.
And I think that there needs to be kind of another relook at screening those systems in conjunction with kind of a rethink of the brick base. I wouldn't mind, as you say, more of a tone on tone strategy with brick base that's more in keeping with the color of the siding, but I would agree with it. Stepping back a notch and getting more tone on tone. But for me, it's also just taking that brick base to another level and looking at the screening of the systems on the site.
Yeah, I agree.
After David pointed out where the generator was, I think I see it in one of these renderings on I don't know, A205. I don't know what page that is in the whole thing. Yeah, it's right. Yep, that's it. Yeah. And then in another rendering, it's shown as well. And is this a natural gas or is it propane? And if it's propane, where's the tank? Maybe that's another question for the applicant.
Any other comments or motion?
This is Andy. My only other comment is I appreciate the design team and owners' desire to keep the driveway truncated, but that road is intended to go on, and I think some gesture towards that extension, so that when somebody comes back, that gets tied into it. Right now, it just looks like a T parking lot to me, and that has always been the intent of those stub outs, is to go to the next property and for it to go on and kind of eventually create a connection across the island. So I still stand by the staff comment from the last time, and I think my comment from the previous time that needs to gesture towards the property line.
In other words, eliminate the stub up.
I think it needs to step up rather than have those shrubs there, or something. It needs to turn back out, so that it has a place to tie to, because if somebody gets the next property and goes to tie into that, they're going to have to come onto this property, remove those shrubs, and tie to it. And I assume that's an easement shown across there, but it's just, it's been done on several other projects across Jones Island, kind of in the same area, same setback off of Maybank. I applaud the changes that have been made to the landscape, and I agree with both Jeff and Dinos's comments on screening. I think that this is my one, item that just continues to need to be addressed.
Another comment or thought is looking at sheet 210. There's probably shows up in a couple other places too, but 210. Just looking at the scale of some of the light fixtures. The light fixtures seem really high, which makes sense as it's going along over some doorways. Yeah, that one right there on drawing D1 just seems a little foreign up there. So it's not foreign, I guess, when you look at it in context to all the other lights, but this one in particular is not related to a window. All the other ones are above windows, so they have kind of a home. This one does not have a home necessarily. And there's some other spots around the building where that condition exists. And I think I might challenge the electrical meter and disconnect configuration that's shown here. Those, I know they like to have those things where at eye level, I think they have a maximum height above grade. So I think this might be the general idea of where these disconnects are going, but I would suspect it's going to be in a different configuration and probably wider so that the meters can be read. And that, to me, that only just strengthens this idea of the screen wall needs to screen if that's what it's intended to do.
That's a great comment. I wonder how accurate that is. Boy, that's as far as the electrical meters and disconnects are concerned.
Yeah, that top meter would be at 9 feet approximately. It's pretty hard to read.
Fairly high. And the wall-mounted light fixture, it's a great comment, Jeff. Are you talking about the one in the center there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It just seems a little lost there. And there's a couple other spots around the building. I think there's one on the next page. As you look at them on the rendering, they also appear in seemingly lost positions. I think that speaks to the scale of the thing.
Yeah, that's are there lights underneath the canopy? I guess Madam Chair, may I ask the applicant that question?
Sure, of course.
If are there lights under the canopy itself? What is the purpose of this wall-mounted light fixture?
That light there would be in the service area, the service yard. I mean, that would light that area. I mean, and then the ones in the front, we're using building lighting as well as site lighting or site poles to light the parking lot area. So we're trying to combine the two.
But when you say it's lighting the service yard,
well, that's lighting that side of the building where you're going to have your electrical, you're going to have your disconnects, you're going to have mechanical equipment there as well. So it's providing lighting to that.
I was thinking, sorry to interrupt, but I was thinking this elevation faces that little courtyard between the buildings where you have patio tables and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the biggest question is what is a great comment that Jeff raised regarding the electrical meters and disconnects, and typically we like to see those screened, and this one at 9 feet in height. That's why I was wondering how accurate this drawing was in that regard. But
most meters are read electronically, or I mean, I'm not saying that what you're not saying is not valid. I'm just saying that I got the actual models and things directly from our electrical engineer, so I can definitely revisit that with him. So.
No, and to be honest, we greatly appreciate the honesty. Lord knows we'd hate to see it all of a sudden show up on the site. So thank you. It's really a compliment.
Yeah. I think there's no doubt that's the location of them. I just think that having a meter at 9 feet in the air is not realistic. Having been there and been subject and victim to a much wider meter center myself. Is this preliminary?
Yes, I
Yes.
believe it is.
Yes, it is.
Right. Are there any other thoughts or comments?
Go ahead with the motion, Jeff.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for a preliminary approval with, I'm not ready for this. Let me hang on one second. Oh, man. Staff comment number 1, great. Thank you. Keeps it simple. Board comments, number 1, present a color of the brick that is more in less contrast with the siding material, more in keeping with the siding material, to present a tone-on-tone color palette. Restudy the brick screen walls to fully screen building systems.
I think
Including-
that, hey, Jeff, staff comment number
Yeah.
1 handles that. It says raise the screen wall height so it screens all of the utilities.
Oh, great.
Is that okay? Okay.
Part of that is the generator too. Provide a more screened solution for architecturally screened solution for the generator.
I think.
Number 3, restudy the light fixtures on the building to be in scale and height for the use of the space to be lit.
So restudy light fixtures on building to be in scale.
And in height with the way the space will be used. And then the last one would be about the driveway stub to the adjacent parcel, as per previous staff comment.
What was that specifically? Sorry.
I thought it was to provide a stub to that driveway to the adjacent parcel. Is that correct, guys?
I thought they did provide the stub. Was there something with the landscaping, Andy?
Yeah.
Andy, you're on mute.
If you look at the plan, it looks like, to me, it's still flat across there.
Yeah, and they
David.
said in their comments that they chose not to do that.
Yeah. And so it's eliminate those shrubs across there and to provide the stub.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Why in there, again, why did they not provide the stub?
They
Yeah.
just thought aesthetically the shrubs would look good.
Okay. So our board comment is to provide the stub into the adjacent property and eliminate the shrubs shown.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. And I believe that captures the comments. Y'all, did I get it?
Okay. Let me
I think so.
try and read it back. We have a motion for preliminary approval of staff comment 1, along with board comments. 1, present a color of the brick in less contrast with the siding material for a tone-on-tone color palette. 2, provide an architecturally screened solution for the generator. 3, restudy light fixtures on the building to be in scale and height with the way the space will be used. And 4, provide the stub out to the adjacent property and eliminate the conflicting shrubs. That cover it, Jeff?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Dinos?
Thank you, Dinos. I'll now call roll. Andy,
Yes, in favor.
Michelle,
Yes, in favor.
Aaron,
Yes, in favor.
and then myself also yes in favor. Thank you very much. Moving on to
Thank you.
agenda item number 3, 1964 Maybank Highway, requesting preliminary approval for a single-story addition to an existing building containing a private garage and retail space. We've seen this one before. I don't know, David, if you have an overview, if we can just jump in.
Sure. I do like to just point out where the project's located for those who weren't here last time. You can see the red thumbtack off of Maybank Highway. And this is a closer image. It's set back quite a bit from Maybank Highway. And it's going to be a new addition located right here. New addition to the existing store. This is the view from Maybank Highway. It lets you see it's set back pretty far. And then this is the location for the new addition. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. Let's see, it's going to be.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Blaine Hamlin with Golf de Antonio. I think we have the owner, Eddie Buck, and his business partner, Fred Whittle, with us. We have Vince Natali, Tony Giuliani with GDA, and Hank de Antonio will probably pop in from time to time. To recap what David just introduced, and thank you for that, we are about 300 feet, give or take, away from Maybank Highway, so we're set back in there a little bit. You can see the existing, if we go back one more, David, I'm sorry. The shot right at the laundromat.
I'm sorry, which one?
Well, if you just browse back through, we had an up close of the laundromat that we're going to be adjacent to.
Yeah.
Building approximately 3 inches with an expansion joint. So I wouldn't technically, it's a give or take if you want to say it's an addition to that building. It's definitely an addition to the landscape, into the little plaza out there. I'll let Vince talk about the landscaping, but in height scale mass, our preliminary review, we basically are only about 3 foot higher, give or take, than the laundromat, and we're about the same width. So if we jump into our architectural presentation drawings, you can see it here. The first page would be fine, just to kind of revisit height, scale, and mass for 30 seconds. We've got a polycarbonate fascia that is aligning with the laundromat fascia that's trying to tie it in. Our fascia would be a polycarbonate versus kind of the 1970s corrugated plastic that's a little more brittle. And I say that because we've also been charged to kind of patch and paint and repair the laundromat fascia a little, and also redo the globe ball on top, giving it its unique appearance. Furthermore, we're carrying our ACM panel extension of our roof over to create a canopy for the outside dining, and then allowing the tables and chairs with umbrellas to do the rest. What you see behind the umbrellas is our cast in place or stand up concrete that's painted to kind of blend in. A lot of glass to allow for the retail and the inviteness of the experience of the space. And for this presentation, I hope I'm not going too fast. In this presentation, we received 12 comments from staff and board in the previous preliminary. The first comment, which was probably the nicest thing I've seen since the Christmas card that my mom wrote me, is that height, scale, and mass, keeps in with the existing building and the surrounding buildings, and that the staff supported architectural direction. That being said, we really started studying kind of colors and materials and looking at how we were going to detail some of this stuff as this round for the board and staff to review, leaving the architecture pretty much the same as the last time. In fact, what we found out was that the height of the laundromat was actually a foot taller, and that, I believe, helps the proportions even more from round one, if you will. That being said, we were also charged, keeping on this view, if you look at the umbrellas on the right hand of your page, beyond, you see kind of a yellow or a gold plane with the lines that will separate the panels of the cast in place or tilt up concrete. We're waiting for some feedback on that, but we were charged to add a mural or climbing vines on that facade. And I believe we've elected to hire a local artist in the future once the project's complete, and he'll add that mural, and we would surely share you the design intent as soon as we kind of figure that out. And that being said, I can either review the architectural drawings in the set one by one, or if you've reviewed them, if there's any questions about materiality, adjacencies, et cetera, I can field those now or afterwards. But I'd like to turn it over to Vince Satali from Earth Source Engineering so he can go through questions 2 through 9, 11, and number 12. Thank you.
Thanks, Blaine. David, if you could go to the landscape plan, it's L200.
Sheet 3.
Yeah. All right, so we went through and addressed the comments from last board meeting, and the first comment was to strengthen the overall landscape plan, and I think we did. We added some more shrubs around the parking lot trees. There was a comment about the gravel in the bottom of our bioswale that's at the north side of the building. And we do feel like we do need that gravel in there. Typically we would put some mulch in there, but we found that the mulch usually will erode pretty quickly, and we had an outfall structure in there, and we didn't want to clog the outfall structure. So that's why we're still using the gravel. It's a pea gravel, so we're hoping that that would allow the soft rush to thrive in there. There was a comment about the north buffer on the north side. So originally this piece of property had a 25-foot buffer in the rear. The owner went to BZA and he got the buffer reduced to a 10-foot green space with no planting requirements. But this is where we always felt that we wanted to put our bioswale, and we're planting a lot of the soft rush in there. So we do feel like we have a lot of planting back there. And the neighbor's property, who happens to be the owner of our site, has a nice thick buffer back there as well. Next, we had patio screening. We added some planters, some removable planters in front of the building and in front of the patio area to shield the parking lot from the patio. And then on the landscape plan, we added the hatch for the pervious pavers, so that was more clear. And I think that was about it for our comments.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? With no comments from the board and no public comments, David, staff comments, please.
Thank you, Erica. Staff observations. The applicants have satisfied all the staff and board comments from the last meeting, and staff supports this project. No further comments, and we recommend the preliminary approval.
Thanks, David. Board discussion and a motion.
This is Michelle. I'd like to make a motion for preliminary approval for this project.
Thank you.
I think it's a nice project.
Very nice.
Yep. Like this is
I
a
applaud
first.
the applicant.
Is there a second? Do we have a motion for preliminary approval? Is there a second?
I'll
Gladly
second. Aaron.
Aaron, I'll defer to Aaron.
Aaron has the second. I will now call roll. Dinos,
Yay.
Andy,
Yes, in favor.
Jeff,
Yes, in favor.
and then I am also yes in favor. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda
Thank you.
is item
Thank
number
you.
4, Ashley
you.
River Road at Dogwood Road, requesting conceptual approval for 78 affordable townhome units for Homes of Hope.
Again, I'll just go over a quick few slides here, show the location of the project. You can see the red circle, it's the location. A little closer, this is at the intersection, the northwest quadrant of it, the intersection of Ashley River Road and Dogwood. And closer view, there's an existing gas station at the corner, which will remain. This is looking south on Ashley River Road. The site is to your right. And then this is looking, west on Dogwood. And the site is going to be behind this existing gas station back in here. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicants. Rivers Cape.
Yeah, David, I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
So you got Rivers Cape and Mike Trell with Stephen Whiteside. Then we also got Jeff Randolph with the Randolph Group. Julia Bolin with Homes of Hope and David Langley with Langley Architects. Just a quick, I guess, status update of kind of where we took our original conceptual DRB comments from the civil and landscape end. One of the big comments was separating the two middle buildings there, buildings P and Q. I think we're gonna have now 25 or 30 feet between them. Also, we've expanded the trail system, especially along the right side of the entry drive. And also we're able to kind of split the sidewalk entry driveway to create a sense of arrival rather than just a driveway into a parking lot. David Langley and then the architects were able to create a screening for the HVACs. They'll be elevated on the side of the buildings with all the trash cans, the roll-up trash cans within those enclosures on the side. So they'll be hidden when not out for pickup. We also had a meeting with David and city staff offline to kind of discuss the direction that we've gone. I believe that was a really constructive meeting. We decided to not put a playground. I don't think the city really wanted that, and Homes of Hope also didn't want that. Let's see what else. And then we did make some updates to the landscape palette, so there wouldn't be any, I guess, for lack of better terms, of pointing plants that people could, stab themselves on and get hurt. So that was really all from the civil end. I'll hand it off to David. He can discuss some of the changes made with the architecture.
Let me know when to advance, please.
Okay, Rivers, thanks. Rivers already discussed the distance and space between the two buildings, P and Q. We looked at different options for how to address the backyard space. And those are shown on our drawings and the renderings, Rivers, if you want to flip to that. And in our meeting with staff, we developed a couple of ideas for rear entry or rear courtyard space with an outdoor storage, and comments we got back from staff, which we kind of tend to agree with, is if you look in the center of the bottom page, option A was the preferred sort of shape and slope for the storage building. And then looking over to the enclosed space to create privacy for that rear courtyard, option B, insofar as just extending that storage room back out to get a bigger exterior courtyard. So we're kind of now looking at combining option A plus with the shape of the storage building and the slope of the roof with option B as far as the amount of fencing and courtyard size space. So that storage room will, excuse me, will move away from the back of the building. And I think that addressed those. And then also staff made a comment about, we had shown, excuse me, on building 6, the 6-unit building, a combination of shed dormers and gables. Staff was recommending just stay with the gables and not intermix the shed dormers with the gables. And we just had shown that for some variety. There you go, right? That's it, Rivers. As you can see in that elevation in the center, as well as the elevation at the bottom where it was option A and D, showing the shed dormers on the rear of the building facing, I think that one's facing Ashley River Road. But just to go back to gables and not shed dormers. And I think that was the major crux of the last comments. If I missed something, David Meeks, please kind of add to those comments. But as Rivers said, the main thing is we came up with some strategy for the ends of the buildings to elevate the mechanical units and then surround that with a screening, wood screening, and then have a place where we can park the rollout garbage containers behind that screening element. I think that was that, and kind of simplifying the architecture. I believe that's the crux of the staff comments that we were in the process of addressing.
Thank you. Anything else? Any questions from the board?
This is Dinos, and thank you. I think it's progressing in the right direction. All right, I just need to make sure I understand. So the shed dormers are no longer part of the presentation. Those will be gables to match. I'm looking at drawing A 0.0. So those
that's correct, Dinos. We just added the sheds just to create some variety to the facade, and staff's comment back was just keep them all as gables across the 6 units.
Good. I completely, I think that's a great direction as well. And
we have done the same notion on the rear of the building that you see in the bottom rear view in the middle of the page.
And when you say the middle of the page, we're talking about
right where.
Okay, so those are, and then the option B is the storage sheds that you went with, the ones
yes,
to the right.
Yeah, we're looking at kind of combining option A there and option B insofar as the storage sheds with the shed roof going sort of left to right or counter sloping to the building. Okay. And then the expanding that to make a larger outdoor courtyard, which was reflecting in option B.
Okay. One of the comments was creating a more defined entry as you come into the property that we had talked about last time, as far as the architecture and the elevations are concerned. Is there anything specific? The renderings may not necessarily show this accurately. Can you talk about that for a moment and what you may have done in order to address that comment?
Well, we were sort of introducing the idea that there's a rear courtyard and a way to come in from off of Ashley through that rear courtyard as another entry element to the back, although it's fenced, but introducing that definition of a courtyard as well as additional outdoor storage to create some other sense of arrival from the rear.
Dinos, were you asking about the entry into the development or the entry into the patios?
Entry into the development. I think the one that you're showing, L 1.3, right here as you enter, we talked about the aspect of how the aesthetics of that unit might address the street. And did I understand? I think that's what we're talking. That was one of the conversations that we had.
Yeah, we're going to see it, Dina, from the front corner of those porches, and then that side element of the enclosure. I'm not recalling what the other discussion point was about that particular building.
All right. Well, thank you. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Dinos. Any other questions?
I had one question. This is Jeff, and I was curious if there were any renderings of the overall development that was shown. I don't know if I made it. I saw that there were another package too, maybe of renderings. Is there one that shows buildings next to each other? One building next to another.
Oh,
building.
like a streetscape view? No, there's not, Jeff.
That's a good one. Okay.
This is Michelle. I had a question. Just in looking at the landscape plans provided, and I may have missed a note that occurs on either these plans or the civil plans, but there is in your sheets L1.1, L1.2, L1.3, there are these squares with an X in them. And for instance, on sheet L1.1, in the middle part of the page where there's a drive and then there are two trees in kind of the center of the page, and these two trees have that X below, and I was wondering what piece of equipment that might indicate.
So Michelle, that's just some preliminary transformer locations. Those will be vetted out with Dominion and also our landscape team as we develop our design.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess I need a little bit more clarity. There were a lot of options presented with the storage and the dormers and the gables and whatnot. What was the preferred applicant's submission? Which one are we to look at? Or is it up to us?
Well, what we were responding to was staff comments that we got back towards the end of June, looking at a couple of other ideas, and those were the comments, which we were fine with adjusting to respect those comments. We weren't opposed to them.
So Jeff, I do have it in the staff recommendations that staff prefers option B, and I explained a few reasons why.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I'll wait.
And I know where Jeff's going, and I agree with where he's going with this comment, but I'll wait until we get to board comments.
I have one quick question on the landscape plan. This is Erin, by the way. If we can go back to the sheet L1.1 that Michelle was looking at. I just happened to notice that or this one too, actually it shows up there, either of those. Yeah, this is fine. If I'm looking at the units along the top, in the rear, there seem to be some gaps in the landscape and foundation plantings. And I assume, is that where there used to be walkways or something and the landscape plan just hasn't been updated to match? Or is there something else going on there that I'm missing? See each kind of a regular pattern. So I assume there's either a layer turned off or something going on there. Yeah.
Gaps there. I believe that was that because we thought there were going to be gates.
Yes, I believe we were planning on, or just accounting for if there are any gates on the back of those units off the patio.
Well, a follow-up question, is it intended to have ground access from the back? And is it at grade, if so?
I
Oh, I
believe
see.
the
I
answer
see
is
some
yeah.
steps. I see. There's some steps right when you go out the back door, isn't there?
Correct.
Yeah, there's a stoop and
Got it.
steps down to the patio at grade.
Got it. Thank you.
You see where I'm pointing? Yeah. So
Yes,
this
sir.
is down at grade, and there's going to be a gate going out this way. Any other board questions?
No public comment, David, so staff comment.
Cool. Thank you, Erica. Okay, staff observations. Staff is supportive of the height and scale and mass of this project, as well as the design direction. The landscape plan has evolved nicely, and especially at the entrance, which has more of a sense of arrival with added landscaping. Most of the previous staff and board comments have been addressed since the last meeting, or was explained in the applicant's response letter. Staff comment number one, the space between the buildings P and Q. So that's the two buildings in the middle here. The space between P and Q has been increased to about 25 feet since the previous submittal. These buildings no longer have back porches, which was one of the reasons we were asking for more space between the buildings. But the added space is still better. The applicants are showing a sidewalk through this area between the buildings, which staff does not feel is necessary. Consider a row of ornamental trees or shrubs between these buildings for added privacy. And I'm talking about this pathway right here between the two buildings. Staff comment number two, in looking at the options for the backyard configuration, let me go to that page. Am I going the right way? No.
I think you went too far.
Okay. So looking at the options for the backyard configuration as seen on sheet 8.0.0 and A 2.0, 2.1, staff recommends A plus. Let's see. Recommends A plus with the privacy fence over A with no fence. And staff prefers option B over option A, as there's more square footage of the backyard with this option, with the shed that is detached from the building. If you look at the plan views, there's quite a bit more space in the private backyard of option B. So that's why we were liking that. Then also with option A plus, the sheds, the water from the roof could potentially be spilling into your neighbor's yard. So that's why we were also preferring option B, where the water will spill off the back behind to the outside of the privacy fence.
So David, may I ask, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not
Right.
sure I'm completely following everything. So staff is recommending option A plus with.
No, I'm sorry. I was saying we prefer option A plus over A because it has a fence. Option A does not have a fence. So we were just pointing out that option A plus has a fence, and that's what we like better.
Okay.
And then between option A plus and B, we like B better because of the orientation of the shed. It's detached from the building, and the slope goes away from the main building and drains to the back outside of the patio. Whereas option A plus, the shed slopes towards your neighbor's back patio and potentially.
Am I oversimplifying it when I say that staff prefers option B?
Yes, I was just telling you all the,
Look, why? Okay, I understand.
yeah, leading up to why we like B the best.
Okay.
Let me see, staff comment number 3. Currently, the larger of the backyards, option B is 11 by 20 minus 5 feet by 10 feet for the shed for a square footage of 107 square feet. Is it possible to extend the backyard fences and shed out more, an additional 5 to 10 feet to give the residents more private backyard space? Staff comment number 4, omit the shed dormers in lieu of the gable dormers for consistency. Staff comment number 5, there was much discussion about the backs of the buildings L, M, N that face Ashley River Road, about how they will be visible from the street, and the applicant should make an effort to make these look less like the backs of buildings. Staff feels these facades facing Ashley River with no gables still look like the backs of the buildings. There was another option here where they were showing no gables on the backs of the buildings. I guess if you look at this image, the lower left A, there's no gables, and to us, it still looked like the back of the building. Let's see. The shed and the fence, although nice with the brick water table, do not help the situation alone, as we had discussed with the applicants in a meeting, as an idea to make these look less like the backs of buildings. Staff recommends that the options with the gables be added to the backs of all the buildings, or at least, at the very least, add gables to the backs of the buildings that will be visible from any street, which is buildings A, C, L, M, and N. Staff comment number 6, regarding the elevations, there appears to be missing line work at the base of all the gables and shed dormers. Let's see, it may have been corrected. Oh no, here it is. If you look at the, just at these images here, they look like they're missing some line work. Just
Yeah.
simple. Number 7, transitions between exterior materials should only occur at internal corners. As proposed, the renderings indicate a transition between board and batten and horizontal lap siding at the second floors between the front elevation and the end of the elevation. Revise the exterior materials so that any transition occurs at the internal corner. Number 8, the revisions to a single floor plan for all units successfully simplified the architecture. However, at the 6 unit buildings, it's resulted in one external roof line running continuous across the building. Consider any techniques which may accommodate some play or transition in the long ridge line of the 6 unit building. And then by preliminary review, we have a few further staff comments. This is a question: will there be an entry monument sign? If so, please show the monument sign location and concept drawing at the preliminary review for bar comments. The final sign review will be a separate application after DRB final review. Number 10, provide a fence detail. Staff approves of the concept shown, referring to the fences at the back patio. Make sure the gap between the boards is not too large that it does not provide any privacy. Number 11, provide a window, head jamb, or sill detail to indicate the presence of an apron at the sill and to indicate the window to be deep set into the wall cavity. DRB asks that the window be deep set into the cavity as deep as possible and provide a detail. Number 12, widen the cross gables on the front elevation and at the rear elevations were used as they currently appear too narrow over the masses beneath them. Number 13, consider a vertical rectangle for the gable vent shape, which would be more consistent with the craftsman detailing. And if this would not increase the total cost. Number 14, review the brick base detailing at the demising walls between the front porches as proposed. The brick base is not of the same height as the brick column bases. And the brick cap treatment is different between the columns and demising walls. Consider whether these should be treated similarly or if there's reason for height to be lowered or increased. Staff comment number 15, the square windows appear to be at a different size than the upper sash of the typical windows. Please confirm if this is for visual interest or as egress from the bathroom would not be required. Number 16, while the buildings are represented as raised slab or stem wall condition, it is understood that this is not, it is understood that this is not confirmed. While the style calls for the raised 4 grade, staff understands increased cost involved. Consider and seek out ways that these can be elevated as much as possible or made to appear to be raised while accommodate the price range as planned. Staff does recommend conceptual approval.
Thanks, David. I did have one question, and I don't remember how the ordinance was passed from City Council, if it was just while the city was in a state of emergency, but I know on affordable developments that our board would only get conceptual review. Does this apply? Is that still an active ordinance?
It is not.
Okay, so we would be seeing this at preliminary review?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for those comments, board discussion and well, before I get to that, there's no public comment, as we mentioned. Does the applicant team have any response or clarification to the staff comments?
No.
Okay, thank you. Board discussion and a motion.
This is Dinos, and I was looking at, this is I'm just going to say it. This is an unusual submittal, having so many options. I may be wrong in the way that I've interpreted our requirements in the past, but typically we see a solution from an architect or a project team that is one that we can comment on without looking as if we are selecting pieces and parcels from one design to another. This honestly is not, I'm not sure that the board as a whole are going to leave this application with the same agreed visual when we come to preliminary, and honestly that kind of concerns me with regards to the actions of the board on this project. I think it was I think it would behoove us in the future to make sure that that all options may be discussed amongst the design team prior, and then with a solution coming forward with the defense of that solution, as we've typically seen with other applications. That being said, we really, from the standpoint of elevations and perspectives, I'm just very difficult to ascertain actually how the design is going to be. The other comment that I'm going to make is if you look at drawing, for instance, L1.3, I think that the city staff has addressed this in the manner in which driving down Ashley River Road, it appears that the main, we're looking at the side facade of the complex there, as opposed to a sense of an entry facade. And of course that can be accomplished in a number of ways, but I'm honestly concerned that maybe I didn't convey the intent more more purposefully when we're talking about the fact that on Ashley River Road, I don't believe personally that it's an appropriate aspect that we're looking at a side of a building as opposed to some statement of entry as we're going down, as you're traveling down that road. The other comment, and I certainly will be quiet, but the other comment that I have is dealing with the end facade. There seems to be three different patterns of siding that we're seeing. I think it's board and batten and a wider. Can David, can you go to an end facade for a moment?
Elevation or rendering?
It doesn't matter. Maybe the rendering would be easier. Maybe not. No, that works. If you can you enlarge that end right there for a moment? There seems to be three different patterns going on. There's a shorter span on the siding, a wider span, and then a board and batten at the top. You've already have the board and batten on that second floor. I'm just wondering if it would simplify it just by bringing the board and batten all the way back around the end of the building itself. And then the freestanding lattice that's protecting the mechanical system. I guess it's the intent of the architect to have it appear as a detached component. And maybe there are other ways that can be addressed so that it doesn't look so somewhat alien to the rest of the building. And I don't know how the board feels about the resolution on the elevations. I mean, all of that notwithstanding, it's certainly a delightful and wonderful evolution from the initial submittal. But again, I'm not so sure that my visual is the same that everybody else on the board is having, because I don't have one solution to look at. So anyway, just comments.
Thanks, Dino. Any other comments?
I've got a couple comments. Let's see if I'm, make sure I'm not muted. This is Jeff. I'm having a hard time really seeing and understanding the overall picture, the bigger picture of the development. I'm looking at the site plan, and I'm guessing there might be 10 feet between some buildings, 20-ish between others. And we're looking at a submittal that has this, the image that's on the board here is, it's a building in a field as we're looking at it as an independent design. And in reality, this particular building may have two other ones on either side of it, or one on either side of it. So I have a real hard time, honestly, saying option B in terms of the dormers is the right thing when I'm looking at perhaps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings of this same design running down a row. I don't disagree with where recommendations are if we're looking at a singular building. I don't think I feel that way when I'm looking at 6 of these in a row. And I don't have that sense of, I'm sorry, I can't fill in the blanks. I need to see the picture, whether you call it a streetscape would help. 3D renderings that show the site would be of extreme importance and relevance. I think those entry experiences, whatever you want to call them, what we're looking at when we're driving in and driving out and driving by is of utmost concern. This is a pretty big project to be looking at individual buildings out of context with their other buildings, especially when the context is the other building is only 10 to 15 feet away. I can't fill in the blanks. And I suspect the designer might learn something too as he looks at the streetscape and say, well, we do need some variety here. We do need some variety there, and maybe those colors are not appropriate here and there and whatnot. I think that it's an improvement. I don't think it's a comprehensive picture on the design exercise. Like some, if we go to the site plan, maybe that conceptual site plan, the colored one, I don't know what, page 5, maybe. It's early on. Just a couple thoughts I have to share on the landscape plan. Really concerned with how the buildings are so close to each other, and if they're the same design, it's going to look like they're together. Like building I and J there, we've got those. I think Dinos made a comment about the enclosure, detached or attached. If the ends are really those enclosures, they're going to be practically touching. So I'm not sure that the design is presented is adequate. Should they touch? Should they be one thing rather than be two things that are 3 feet away from each other? But the bigger picture, that's a little detail, but bigger picture, I'm wondering if, where is these are my notes, building C. When you're driving into the building from Dogwood Road, the first thing you're looking at is the building C is the back of that building. I do agree that the way we've talked about the rear of the buildings with the gables and the fencing helps, but is that really the front entry? Is that the statement of the entrance of that block of buildings? I wonder if that particular building might be a benefit if it were that one were rotated 90 degrees. So you're seeing more of the porches, front porches. I don't know, just a thought. And really this goes more to the point of what are we seeing from an overall perspective as we're driving in or driving around or driving by. Building P, would that benefit from being rotated 90 degrees? And I think about the backyards of P and Q. They're the only ones that are sharing backyards. And it looks like there's maybe 50, you said the dimension, 20 feet between buildings.
Yeah, 25. Correct.
And would it not benefit that occupant if it were rotated and then you could landscape the front or the back? So it creates a landscape patio. It's just things I think about. Buildings L, M, and N, definitely think the perspective along River Road is very important. But I think these are just things that I would study as if I were looking at the site plan. But I think the thing that's going to tell it, and these are all just thoughts and ideas, but the proof will be in these renderings that show what it's like when we drive in the entry drive or drive by. Those are important. And I don't think we can judge that, dear board, with buildings that are just independently presented. I don't feel comfortable with, I don't understand the design.
And you said that so much more eloquently than I did. And I made a mistake. It is Dogwood Road, exactly what you were saying where building A is, that, is the one that, is one of Dogwood Road is a pretty busy road. And it seems like there's no real sense of entry as far as the architecture is concerned.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a tower, it doesn't have to be a circle Victorian porch or whatever, a bad example, but it does need to acknowledge that it's a primary entry.
And I know there was another application that we saw, particularly looking at the alignment of buildings G through K, where it's very, the linear aspect isn't necessarily the negative aspect, but I think it's going back, looking at the positive and negative space that's being created. And you're right. I mean, it's just hard to envision how all of this is going to look without that overall perspective. or at least a sense that it has all been studied collectively as opposed to just individually per building.
I mean, that's an interesting idea. If building C, D, and E say kind of step back and forth a little bit, and those G through K may do the same thing.
I think that would
Just
help
to,
tremendously.
yeah, just to have some variety as you're walking down the sidewalk, that the buildings step in and out.
I'm going to chime in here. This is Michelle with just a couple of other comments. I completely agree with my colleagues and what they've already stated about, showing some more design evidence to help us understand and support this application in terms of overall design and entry experience and the nature of the architecture as it's experienced from Ashley River Road. I do have a couple of comments as they start to pertain to the site plan and the site design. One being an earlier comment in regards to the site elements or earlier question I had in regards to site elements and transformers. I probably should have raised some of these questions earlier, but they are, I think, some things that need to be considered before the application comes back before us. And in terms of thinking about the overall site and designs of these buildings and how they may be manipulated, but not really seeing any. And this is not my space truly for design, but I wonder about accessible units and if those are required, because every single building has steps. So if there are any required ramp designs, I would expect those to be presented and the mediation of those depicted on the site as well. And my only other concerns, which have been touched upon earlier, are in regards to the screening and the screening of the trash enclosures and the mechanical units, and how really those sides of buildings become so important because of how they turn on the site. And so I think it's really important to consider all elevations of this building typology in their specific location as they land on the site, which can truly only be presented if we had a better holistic picture and renderings, in my opinion. That's all I had.
Thanks, Michelle. Any other additional comments or emotion?
This is Andy. I think everybody's comments are spot on. I think, you've obviously built the buildings in SketchUp or some modeling program. And I think that inserting those into and building the site, as everybody has said, it would be of great benefit to be able to walk around. And because I really do believe, as Dinos and Jeff says, you stand in front of M and look down through K through G, and that's going to look like one long facade down through there. I really think, in addition to that, I think the site plan has a lot of, I think I've said before, just very unterminated vistas down these long stretches, and something to kind of catch your eye, catch some the termination of that view would benefit the plan as you study it. I am concerned, in addition to building A, but just the entry into the site, to me still looks like you're entering in a parking lot. You have this long throat that doesn't have any parking on it, that has the opportunity to, be something special in conjunction to what you do with A. It makes this feel like you're coming into something, something that's different, something that's exciting. And I think some of this can be, brought into the parking lot, kind of break up these long areas of asphalt. We've kind of not talked about that with some projects here recently, but where these crossings are, break up these long linear spaces of asphalt. And one more thing on buildings P and Q, we're kind of back to those are being, we've separated them, but they really are kind of underserved with parking. I see 2 spaces in front of the mail kiosks, and I don't know, the parking lot kind of bumps out around it, and I kind of feel like they're kind of isolated out on this island that, I just really think that solution needs to be studied more along with the whole site.
I was thinking the same thing, Andy, for building B, that there's not much parking close to it, and just from a loading, unloading standpoint, could prove to be a challenge at times.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one that it just feels like, you got those 4 spaces across the street, but everybody tends to have 2 cars these days, or, the majority of people have 2 cars. And so you get home late, and you live in B, you may end up parking over by, G, if you can find a space. Or I know a couple of complexes that people get home at late and they just end up parking on a curb right there in front of the building, and then you're cutting down the fire access, or they're destroying, curb, everything else. I just think there are a lot of spaces that are just kind of missing. I just, I think that there's a lot to be restudied here before we get, I think, down the road much further than where we are.
Any other comments, or does anyone have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for deferral for staff comments 2 through 8. And board comments, I have 11 of them written down.
Oh Lord, okay, let me get a piece of paper.
That's right, get ready. It might be 10. It might be 10. All right, number 1, provide 3D views showing all buildings in context. A minimum of 3 at Dogwood, Ashley River, the entry showing building ABC, and then an interior.
Sorry,
views.
entry showing, say that again.
ABC buildings. And maybe an interior one, so 4.
Okay.
Number 2 is about site elements and accessibility, just having an understanding, present an understanding of accessible units. Number 3, consider all building elevations as they exist in their own context.
Sorry, say that one again.
Consider all building elevations as they exist in context. Basically, all elevations are unique.
Okay.
Number 4, study the undulation and plan of the buildings to provide variety, streetscape.
Okay.
Number 5, provide something to catch the eye at unterminated vistas.
Okay.
Number 6, strengthen the entry of the site, make it something special, which may incorporate building A. Maybe it may affect building A.
Okay.
Number 7, study breaking up the long line of asphalt, perhaps at crossings.
Okay.
Number 8, this one is in regards to buildings P, Q, and B relative to parking and site planning and function. Improve, I think that the direction is to improve buildings P and Q and B relative to parking and function.
Sorry, B, Q, and P
Yes, ma'am.
relative to function and parking.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 9, possibly rotate C, P, and A for better vistas and presence. That's part of that study with number 1.
And 5.
Yes.
Comment 5.
Yes, thank you. And number 10 would be to simplify the siding patterns, simplify the materiality.
Okay.
Jeff,
And I'll be happy to,
would you add one other
please,
through your
maybe.
very comprehensive? Could we delineate all ancillary and amenity buildings?
Good.
As part of our consent, there are amenity buildings that I'm seeing that I'm just wondering what
they are.
they going to look like? I'm just looking at that site plan, the conceptual site plan.
Great.
Yes, can you repeat that one?
Number 11, the last one.
Yes, please.
Identify or delineate all amenity buildings shown on site plan.
Okay. So we have a motion for deferral based on staff comments 2 through 8, along with board comments. Number 1, provide 3D views of all buildings in context, a minimum of 4, at Dogwood, at Ashley River Road, at the entry showing buildings A, B, and C. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, sorry, the 4th one was an interior view. Number 2, present understanding of accessible units. 3, consider all building elevations as they exist in context. 4, study the undulation in the plan of buildings to provide variety in the streetscape. 5, provide solution at the unterminated vistas. 6, strengthen the entry of the site to make it something special, which may affect building A. 7, a study breaking up the long line of asphalt, perhaps at the crossings. 8, improve buildings B, Q, and P relative to function and parking within the site plan. 9, related to comment number 1 and 5, possibly rotate buildings C, P, and what was the third one, Jeff? Sorry.
C, P, and A.
Thank you. For better vistas and presence. 10, simplify the materiality of siding patterns. And 11, provide design of all amenity buildings shown on the site plan.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Andy. I'll second.
Thanks, Andy. I will now call roll. Dino?
Dino's is in favor, yes.
Aaron?
Yes, in favor.
Michelle?
Yes, in favor.
And then I am also yes in favor. Thank you very much. We are moving on to agenda item number 5, 1800 Produce Lane, requesting approval for a 1-story retail development. The applicant received conceptual approval on February 1st, 2021, and they are now requesting final approval from the board.
Thank you, Erica. Just a few slides showing the location. You can see the red back 1800 Produce Lane. Here's a closer image. Produce Lane is it's a future road. Not quite completed yet. There's one view into it. This is the Produce Lane. Currently, this is looking west on Maybank Highway, and the site is in here. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant, Lossie.
Good evening, guys. Lossie Knight with LFK Architects, and we have our civil engineer, Kyle with Hoyt Barini, who's going to start with introducing the site.
Yeah, hey guys, this is Kyle Taylor, Hoyt and Barini, civil engineer and landscape architect on the project, and George Rivas may be on the line too. So David, if he's on the line, then certainly want to welcome him for any comment as well. So happy to be here with you guys tonight. Until actually River Road came in, I was going to say you guys should maybe be called the Maybank Highway Review Board. Presenting here, I think our last submittal was in February. And since that time, we've done some heavy coordination with the TRC and the DOT to get on the same page and anticipating submitting for those final approvals in the next couple of weeks. David, just to quickly get everyone maybe oriented, actually that view, well, if we could maybe go to your sheet, page 154, it's a little bit more blown up than that cover sheet. But just to get everyone sort of realigned with the project here for our submittal on Maybank Highway and Produce Lane, which is recently built. As far as we understand, we weren't the developer's engineer for the subdivision, which is 33 lots with this commercial outlot. As far as we understand, the subdivision was recently recorded with final plat approval and final stormwater and roadway plans, record drawings approved, and TMS numbers assigned. So we are full steam ahead toward getting those final approvals and final conveyance to this developer for our project. And David, maybe one more down, 3 more down. I think your page numbers are different than the package that I have on my files. Page 37 for us, David.
Okay.
Yeah, so just kind of to capture the rendering and maybe show off Lossie's work here for our building, anticipating 4 units with some sort of mini plaza areas out in the frontage with some benches and these palm trees and some meandering ground cover elements as well, generally with a neutral palette to try and match the tones on the building. We're providing this 8-foot wide multi-use sidewalk as well, and filling the ditch in the right of way and taking out and clearing up some of the nasty kind of trees that are left to remain against the current property line as well. So really trying to clear that up and fill that ditch and make this a very appealing and presentable facade in view as one of the 3 gathering places as well on Johns Island. And so David, if we maybe just wanted to turn to the landscape plan, I'll briefly go through some of our responses and maybe a few items that we tweaked since our last submittal, and maybe some of the concerns that were communicated by staff and the board members. A few of the comments just to go over. One was in regards to the 2 parking spaces at the kind of northeast corner and making sure that those were adequately screened. So we are providing a 12-foot landscape buffer. Normally it's 15, but we've got a 7-foot utility easement, so it comes out to be 12, along with the hedgerow against those parking spaces and the pier and slat screen wall as well that wraps along the frontage and wraps to the south. Kind of a BZA comment that they wanted to see in addition to the screening against that residential lot. And then the BZA also approved our parking kind of being so close to the pond property with some additional screening elements there as well. So maybe Lassie can present those in the renderings, maybe going down the line. And maybe one of the other key elements was studying the triangular sawtooth areas along the front of the building on the parking lot side. So we provided a couple of palm trees there. We want to be a little bit sensitive not to screen the signage too much. So we did provide 2. And then in the other sawtooth areas, we provided our bicycle parking. Because honestly, we're kind of scratching our head on is where is the most adequate space for bicycle parking. It's a little tight having our patio area and sidewalks. And so as it stands, we felt like it was appropriate to try and provide 1 ring sort of along each of those sawtooths that don't have a palm tree on the parking lot side. So we provided those areas along the front of the building on the parking lot side, as well as the palm trees interior to the parking lot as well. And some additional foundation hedgerows as well on the parking lot side. And the Maybank Highway side, we felt like was pretty well accepted. It's got those layers of various ground covers and hedgerows. And I think one of the main items was looking at alternatives for if unit D there did not have 2 doorways. And so Lassie can I'm sure elaborate on those concepts as well, if or when unit D decided not to have 2 doorways. But to make sure that I adequately go through maybe some of those responses here that were included, there was a comment again in regard to the Maybank Highway landscaping. And so again, we provided various ground covers intending to match the building with kind of a whimsical building attitude of Johns Island. We provided those 2 planter islands interior to the parking lot, which was kind of one of the comments. There was an ongoing sort of board comment about the grading plan. I don't know if anyone's driven by, with it being a pad ready lot, it definitely can feel very high. So we are intending to cut down the site approximately 1 foot. And once we fill the ditch in the right of way, it definitely will not seem nearly as high. So, I mean, David, we do have sort of an exhibit. Maybe I don't want to take up too much time, but maybe it's helpful. And that's going to be on our page. On our page 28.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think we're going the wrong way.
This is 28.
Okay.
I think
Somehow it jumped from 40s to the 28, but okay. All right. I could stand corrected. So you were on it. Yeah, you were on it.
That's it?
No, it had the 28 in the bottom right. It just threw me off because I guess it was after it didn't seem to come after 27 when you were scrolling, but.
All right, so this is not it.
No, I'm sorry. Keep going in that. I think you're going in the right direction.
Well, I'm going back to page 28. This is 28.
Yep. Yeah, just in my head, it went from 28 to I think 37. But anyway, this is the right page. So maybe if it's helpful, you know, David, if we want to scroll into those sort of profiles of the section cuts of the site, section A is there from plan left to plan right. And David, if you want to scroll into the section of,
oh, I'm sorry,
the section view of section AA. Yeah. Yeah, so this is drawn at a 1-to-1 scale. So hopefully this helps to kind of put the board at ease a little bit. You know, we are going to be roughly 18 inches to maybe even up to 2 feet above the edge of pavement, but in reality, across that 35 feet or 40 feet of space, it's going to seem very appropriate. So hopefully that helps give some confidence to the board. And we've got the full grading plan here if anybody had any questions about that. And we did receive TRC stormwater comments very recently, actually, which confirmed that we've complied with all this. I shouldn't maybe say all, but essentially all of the stormwater comments that our submittal has received. So we're in good shape, generally on the TRC front as we round things out. And with that, maybe the last thing I would note before turning it over to Lassie is we have provided site area lighting in accordance with BEC requirements for anticipating lease lighting. So we've provided kind of a pretty common low profile shoebox LED style luminaire, full cutoff with 20-foot tall poles. And certainly if any board members had any comment or had any thoughts on that, we're certainly open, but that's what we provided to demonstrate adequate site lighting as well. And happy to answer any questions, but certainly want to let Lassie steal the show, hopefully with the building.
Thank you, Kyle. David, if you wouldn't mind, page 30 that we have labeled, I think is your page 156. Yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah, if you could go by your page numbers because they're different.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll do that. Thank you. And guys, I know it's been a few months since we've seen you, so just want to kind of give a quick recap here. This is the architectural floor plan and site plan. You can see it is a mixed-use building, currently broken up into 4 units. The unit on the right, Unit A, is what we intend or anticipate being a restaurant use. And then we have the associated outdoor dining and trellis area to the right of that. Really, the plan layout hasn't changed since last time you've seen it, other than we had to reduce the outdoor trellis and dining area slightly to provide a little bit more room for this utility easement along Produce Lane. But this just gives you some kind of just a refresher on sort of what our general shell building program is, and then some of these little pedestrian garden spaces that sort of front Maybank Highway. And then David, if we could go to page 50, please. And so guys, you know, really over the past couple of presentations we've had to you, I think we're down to one architectural comment, which is the study, the activation or lack of activation for the Maybank side of the building and provide an alternate for removing the tenant entrances along Maybank. So before we get to providing a solution in response to that question, just wanted to kind of quickly recap, as I know it's been a little while. So this just shows you our views from Produce Lane and Maybank, gives you a reminder of some of our materials palette with the oyster tabby, brick edging, really simple sort of lap siding. We have several different versions of this. We have a vertical V groove, we have standing seam metal roof lines, and just really simple sort of Sea Island vernacular with rafter tails and canopies. So just kind of a refresher on our exterior materials palette. And David, if you could please jump to page 32.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, what I thought here was we could just quickly sort of comb through from page 32 to page 44. Is this simply some 3D views trying to show you bird's eyes, trying to show you streetscapes, trying to show you some close-up sense of how each one of these storefronts are going to feel as a pedestrian. So David, if you would, we could just sort of scroll through kind of quickly for the next few pages until we get through these models. Just as a reminder to everyone here. We have added some landscape along the back of the building, adjacent to the storefronts. Our views, east and west, entry at Produce Lane. View east. Entry along Produce Lane, our outdoor trellis, seating area. A close-up of that space. Again, a rear view from the parking lot. Close-up of Unit D. You'll see B and C. Then we'll close with Unit A, also the outdoor pergola and seating area. Okay, David, if we could then skip to page 46. So guys, I think, again, the primary architectural question we had or comment was to sort of studying not only the activation, but also the deactivation of the building along Maybank. This screen shows you sort of a summary of what we studied. So the top is the proposed activated facade, the top image that you just saw a sequence of the 3D modeling. The next two versions are an attempt to sort of deactivate the facade along Maybank. If we can go to the next slide, please. So that shows you a close-up of these sort of pedestrian gardens. This is the activated facade along Maybank as it currently stands. Next slide, please. So this version here, you can see we're starting to sort of simplify the facade by having some smaller windows proportion for units B and C. We've removed the doors and the canopies. Next slide, please. And finally, in this second study, we also removed some of the sidewalk connections to unit A and D, which is to the left and right on your screen in white, and also looked at simplifying and sort of reproportioning the windows on these as well. So David, if you could please go back to page 46, which shows the summary. Overall, we sort of felt like after kind of working through those studies that ultimately we sort of fell on what we have as the proposed at the top of the sheet, which is reflected in all the 3D studies. And really, this is a matter of spending some time looking through this Johns Island community plan and working with staff and sort of feeling like, given that we fall into one of these three major nodes of gathering place, which is then further defined as the Four Corners in Town section, it seems like all the characteristics as defined in there are kind of leaning towards more activating the facades with pedestrian space and storefront doors. So, but just wanted to share this study for conversation. And then, David, if you could finally go to page 54. So guys, the next few pages here just provide some detail with building sections and enlarged sections that we didn't have previously. This answers some of the questions about the volumes within the building and some of the further specifications as we get to the enlarged sections. As Kyle mentioned, we do have a lighting plan as well with all of our exterior fixture and cut sheets. We actually have a lighting symbols plan, which is overlaid on the roof plan if we need to reference that. So if there's any questions, we're happy to respond.
Thanks, Lossie. Any questions for the team?
Just a comment to Lossie and a personal comment. Thank you for the studies of the activation, deactivation. I cannot begin to tell you how much I appreciate it. It's an interesting analysis, and quite candidly, it really helps me visualize a variety of issues as well. But the fact that you wholeheartedly looked at it the manner that you did and the way you presented it is most gratefully appreciated as we go forward. Thank you.
Any other comments or sorry, questions, hearing questions? With none and no public comments, David, staff comments, please.
Thank you, Erica. Staff observations. The applicants received conceptual approval in February 2021, but are now asking for final approval. Staff is supportive of this project and the progress made with the site and the building design. The landscape plan has been enhanced and looks great. The applicants have provided alternative facade designs as asked by the board to demonstrate the scenarios if less number of tenants end up occupying the building. Staff approves of the alternates as well. Staff comment number 1, regarding previous staff comment number 7, staff appreciates the extra landscape screening between the entry drive and the 2 parking spaces near Produce Lane. There are a few shrubs that were added to the parking lot side of the fence between the nose of the parked cars and the fence. Staff feels these shrubs along the inside of the fence would be more beneficial if moved to the street side of the fence. Number 2, traffic sign posts in DRB purview are to have decorative round or square posts painted black or Charleston green. Only the stop sign, if in the right of way, must remain the standard breakaway U-channel post for CDOT. Number 3, the light levels on the photometric plan need to be adjusted slightly as the foot candle numbers are to stay at or below 5. Number 4, provide wheel stops at the middle parking spaces where the cars are nose to nose and where there are no curbs to stop the wheels. Looks like I accidentally skipped number 5. That's blank. Number 6, most transom window grids show lights which have a horizontal proportion. Adjust these to improve the light proportions to be at a minimum square in proportion. Number 7, staff approves of the light fixtures and site furnishings proposed. Number 8, typically staff asks for a screen fence to screen the electric meters, but in this case, landscaping may be sufficient since the west end of the building is on the existing buffer or wetlands with existing trees. Please provide a naturalized landscape grouping of plants to screen the area in front of the meters and include some evergreens, please. This will also help to further screen the parking lot from the cars traveling east on Maybank. A note to paint the meters and the conduit the same color as the facade were located. Number 9, the bike racks look to be located right up against the curb, which would allow for only one bike to be locked on one side. Relocate the rack to the middle of that space and away from the curb to accommodate a bike on both sides of the loop. This bike pack, the bike rack that they're specifying is detailed on sheet 64, and the bikes are locked parallel to the rack and not perpendicular. So if you could, in your next submittal, demonstrate that a bike fits on the bike pack on the rack on both sides. Number 10, submit all signage to staff separately for review and approval. Number 11, revise detail 2 of sheet A304 to indicate a minimum slope at the top of the wall and the columns for drainage purposes. Staff does recommend a final approval with staff and board conditions to be met and a revised full permit set to be submitted to staff for final sign off.
Thanks, David. Board, Lossie or Kyle, did y'all have any responses or clarifications to any of the staff comments?
I do not.
Okay, thanks. Any board comments or a motion?
I am, unless anyone has any specific comments, I'm more than willing to move for a motion unless someone wants to speak before.
I don't have anything.
Go ahead, Dimas.
I will move for final approval with staff comments 1 through 4 and then 6 through 11.
And then I assume you want to include the staff recommendation that revised full permit set to be submitted.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, please.
That's okay. So we have a motion for final approval with staff and board staff conditions to be met. and a revised full permit set submitted to staff to give final sign off. And the staff comments included in the motion are 1 through 4 and 6 through 11. Is there a second?
This is Andy. I'll second.
Thanks, Andy. I'll now call roll. Aaron,
Yes, in favor.
Michelle,
Yes, in favor.
Jeff,
Yes, in favor.
and I am also yes in favor. Thank y'all very much.
Yep, well done.
Next on the agenda
Good
is.
Good
evening.
job,
Thank you.
Lassie. Good job, Lassie.
Next on the agenda is item number 6, 2310 Henry Tecklenburg requesting conceptual approval for 2 one-story electric operations buildings for crew dispatch and special care center.
Thank you. Just a couple context slides here. You can see the red circle is the location on Henry Tecklenburg, the corner of Henry Tecklenburg and Savage. Here's a closer view. It does have existing power lines that go through the site. And then adjacent to the site across the street at Savage is the existing Dominion site. Here's a closer view. And then if you recall, directly to the west of the site is the newly approved DCI dialysis center that we saw recently. This is one view looking into the power lines. Kind of to the right is looking north on Savage. And to the left, you can see an existing road which runs along the south property line, which is going to be maintained. And then this is looking across the street from the site. The site is to the left, and this is the existing Dominion power station. This is looking south on Savage, and to the right is Henry Tecklenburg. And then another view into the site. This is looking east on Henry Tecklenburg. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. Going to be Paul.
Keith Clark.
And Keith, thank you, Keith.
Thank you. I'm Keith Clark with MCA Architecture. Also on the phone, we have Trey Linton with Forsberg Engineering and Paul Petromahelis, also with MCA Architecture. This project is an electric crew quarters. We are replacing the electric crew quarters that Mr. Meeks showed you briefly, and that site will be demolished and repurposed for Dominion use. This building houses those individuals that work on the local electric distribution system. They service probably about 250,000 meters out of this location. And so they have a lot of support requirements to be able to physically do their work. So what you're looking at here is just the concept image of the office building, where it houses the crew, it houses support staff, engineers, managers, and then the area to the left that you see the single shed slope roof, that would be the warehouse to support copper and conduits and various fittings and whatnot would be in that warehouse component. The building has to be in use during storm events that happen to the coastline of South Carolina and in particular your area. So the building will hold an essential building classification. Our thinking right now is that this will be a load-bearing precast wall, and the elements would be a thin brick on the bottom, just to create a little more of a robust nature for the exterior walls. One of the things I do want to talk to you about is Dominion has standard finishes that they employ on all their buildings. And so the darker standing seam roof that you see there is something they employ on all their new construction. The brick exterior, although thin brick is not something they normally do, but brick exterior in particular colors is something that they do. And so I want to talk about how those standards get impacted as part of the DRB review. The site is here the site has been absorbed into the PUD, the Essex Farms PUD. One of the things that Mr. Schultz wrote into our acceptance into the PUD is that we would build a structure at the terminus of the Essex Farms multi-use path. And basically what his request is at that initial corner that David showed you between Tecklenburg and Savage Road, we would build a structure that I was really wanting to ask if you guys would get involved in that too. Mr. Schultz gave us the option of choosing a water fountain, a bike rack, a bus stop, or interpretive signage. And we get to choose 2 of those 4 options. But I don't know how we haven't started on that design, but I would like some feedback while we're talking here about your involvement in that particular corner. David, if you wouldn't mind just rolling through the site, the next few drawings. This is our overall plan. And as you can see, we have a large Dominion Energy right away going through the site. So it's a kind of a natural that they would be the ones to purchase the site because they can do some things in that right away that others struggle to do. I'll leave it at that. If you go to the next few slides, this was our survey and our tree survey. We did identify 11 grand trees. Some of them were pine and some of them not. Those are before the Trey, help me with the right board you approved.
TRC.
Board of Zoning Appeals.
Board of Zoning Appeals. They're in front of that group right now to see if we can pull those down, because if we can't, they would certainly impact our layout that we are presenting here this evening. Next slide, please. They were probably next several that just shows close-ups of the tree survey and survey that we did. Keep going, please. One more. We do have 3 wetlands on the property. All 3 of those will be gone at the end of this process. Dominion has lots of wetlands banks that they trade to make those go away. So those will be going away. This is the concept site plan. As part of the PUD, their requirement was that the office building engage Tecklenburg, and we can see part of the parking associated along Tecklenburg. And then their goal was that the rest of the laydown yard not be seen from Tecklenburg or from Savage or from the residential neighborhood to the south. And when we say the elements not to be seen, we have trucks, we have transformers, we have power poles, we have wire reels. None of the storage areas exceed 12 feet in height, but they're outdoor elements. They have to have these things to work on the system. So the part of the PUD was, yes, you can come into this Essex Farm site, but we need you to screen all those. So that's our intent. Would you go, David, to the next several? I'm not going to refer to, this is the landscaping plan. You may or may not have comments on this, obviously very early in its conceptual stage, but I will point out they erred in the typing where they, over on the right-hand side where they put covered truck staging. That area of the site has no covered trucks. The only covered trucks are right in the middle of the site, and it's a vehicle pull-through bay is what it is. If you'll go to the next few slides, please. Next one. Okay, this is the context of the adjacent buildings on Tecklenburg. Essex Farms is more of a medical facilities. And these, anyway, this is the context in what we're building around and how these buildings engage Tecklenburg, and hopefully ours will be acceptable in how we chose to engage it. Next slide, please. Just the aerials, probably won't spend any time on these because David's already given you the location, better location of where we are. So this is the extent of the tree removal, which is in orange. Obviously, there's a big right of way in the middle. So it's a pretty extensive tree removal. A lot of it is underbrush, is what I would call it, being from the upstate. But the grand trees are a part of that, and obviously the wetlands are a part of that. But you can see how we need to make all those wetlands go away. Next slide, please, sir.
May I interrupt for just one moment?
Sure.
And if I may ask, Madam Chair, and I'm sorry to do this, Do I understand that BZA has not approved the removal of the trees?
We are in their agenda right now. So as of now, they have not.
And if I could interject, I did just speak to Eric Schultz this morning to ask him the status. And he just told me the same thing, that they're on the agenda, but he said that they are going to be supporting the removal of the trees because of the nature of the site.
Just from a procedural standpoint, just for clarity on my own part, I was under the impression that all zoning issues needed to be resolved before they came to the board. Am I incorrect there?
Well, that's what I was getting at, that Eric gave kind of a special exception. That he said he felt comfortable then moving forward with DRB.
Okay, thank you.
I guess Dinos's question, and I agree and understand Dinos, is are we setting a precedent here by hearing this and voting on it potentially?
That's exactly what my concern is. I mean, if the
what is the specific reason for the special exception? Is it truly a special exception, or are we setting a precedent?
No, it's not. It's not truly a special exception. We had a conversation this morning. He said he felt comfortable moving forward. It's up to you all. I thought we could still give him feedback on the building.
Okay. Well, I'm just fearful of how we address this in the future for somebody that might be coming to us as well without all of the variances secured. I certainly understand and can greatly appreciate all the hard work that staff does, but I think as we know, that doesn't necessarily guarantee approvals, and it's just, but anyway, it's
and Mr. Clark, I apologize for interrupting you. We apologize for interrupting you. This is just atypical to be hearing an application before variances are secured. And so that's why we're having this discussion. So I apologize.
Not a problem from our perspective. That life happens. People were on vacation. Some things didn't get posted. And so that's why he said, go forward.
Sure. I guess I'm just trying.
Yeah.
Dinos, given that it is, go ahead.
I understand. No, I'll withdraw my concern at this point in time, but something that I really do believe we need to note collectively in the future that.
Agreed. I think what can give me some comfort is that just the public nature of this application and it being a utility company, that's a little bit atypical. So maybe, that's for this specific example where we are, but maybe we have, like what you said, a greater conversation.
Well, Erica, I have been sitting here kind of thinking the same thing, kind of holding off. I am concerned, and I do, as much as I put my faith in Eric's knowledge of the board and the process. I do, I guess, at least want to voice my concern with the direction we're going.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think just given the situation on where we are right at this moment, my personal opinion is to continue, have a conversation with the board, and to figure out a plan forward, because we're, in my opinion, even if Eric says staff supporting it, it's not something we should be hearing at this point. In my mind, the special exception for where we are right now is just a public utility application.
And as a board member, I would be so disappointed, and I know our staff has never done this to us, but if I were sitting on BZA side, I would be somewhat disappointed precluding the final decision that they're going to be coming back with. So, but anyway, I've certainly interrupted the meeting, and I know the time is late, so something for us further to talk about.
Agreed. Okay, Mr. Clark, we apologize again. Please resume.
Okay. As part of the requirements, you asked for a dimensional drawing of the other buildings in context, and the upper elevation shows that we're about 260 feet from the closest building, although there is one in review right now that will be between those two buildings. And then off of the lower elevation is off of Tecklenburg. We're about 60 feet off of Tecklenburg to that outdoor amenity area. David, if you'll go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is the view as you would turn in off of Tecklenburg with the amenity area there to the right, the main entry there under the shed roof at the front of the facade. Programmatically, we have to provide a secure public and a secure employee entrance there into the single lobby. And so that's why it's projected out from the building, so that we can have entry points from either side with a fence line that breaks the two. The intent of the fence line is I'll say more decorative in nature, but also to, as the landscaping matures, to really provide a screen of what's on the other side. And that's at the request of the PUD what the requirements that they had written in there. Next slide, please. More of an aerial view with the secure gate entry there. The building, just in general, the utility yard is back behind the warehouse building there, which is again that shed roof portion. The crew entrance is behind a screen wall there, right at the corner of that warehouse, where we've extended the precast wall out to kind of screen that view and just give the front facade a more seamless view. But the building is robust from an energy and backup standpoint with 100% generator backup. All that mechanical courtyard is back behind the warehouse building, not visible really from any sight line. And we will show you those, as we go forward, and those actual sizes get defined, and we can put the right equipment out there in the yard. Next slide, please, sir. Well, I should have just waited. This to the right-hand side there of the warehouse is where that equipment yard will be. This left-hand side intentionally has no windows. That's the storm room from the inside, as well as training for all the crews, outside crews that come from other jurisdictions to work here in the event of storms. They enter through that back door to get training on the system here that they would be going and repairing. And so this area is intended to be very robust, and it's designed to withstand storms and wind-blown debris. Next slide, please. Just the side going down the facade. Once you get to the gate right there, that last window is the last part of the, I'm gonna call it the support office area. Everything back behind that is meant to be in a storm center, if you will. And at the top of the slide there, you can see the pull-through truck bay. That obviously we don't have any utility trucks in there yet, but we can certainly draw them in. But that's all it is a utility pull-through truck bay. Next slide, please, sir. Just another view from the employee parking lot and their secure entry into the building. Next slide. Just from standing underneath the truck shed, looking back at the crew quarters entry there, and that's the side of the warehouse. Next slide. The interior floor plans, I don't know if y'all care so much about this. I'll be glad to go over it, but basically the lower portion is is the crew area, support engineering, and then the bottom part is all the storm center, and then the upper portion is the warehouse portion. Next slide. The roof, it's a gable roof on the office portion, shed roofs on the warehouse and the entry. All standing seam metal roof, all dark bronze in color, if we're allowed to use the Dominion standards. Next slide. The front elevation is just defining more of the materials. If you wouldn't mind just going to our architectural site plan, because I think there it is, the next slide. This is, anyway, this one is accurate as far as its words, and I don't know if any of you have seen this at all or not, but with Tecklenburg being up high, and excuse me, high on the slide, the multi-use path that goes throughout Essex Farms is what the city planners wanted us to develop on this site. And then over to the right-hand side there is where we would have what they called the Greenway Trail head final design to be determined. And that was one of my other earlier questions. Then we leave all those trees behind there to help screen the view from that intersection onto the site. And then, as I said earlier, the residential area to the south, it will have an 8-foot high opaque fence. We're still working with Mr. Schultz and you guys also as to what those opaque materials can be, but we expect it to be opaque. And then from the Tecklenburg side, they requested a berm with landscaping. Inside of the right-of-way, we cannot build a berm because we have height restrictions underneath the transmission lines, but we do intend to put dense vegetation through there. We just can't let anything exceed a mature height of 15 feet inside of the right-of-way. So I will pause now and ask you, try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, this is really, this is a policy issue that I'm just really continuing to struggle with, and the board may completely disagree with me. But, and Lord knows, I know how hard everybody works, and we have an unbelievably remarkable staff that we work with, but I fear that this sets a bad precedence for us if we move forward with an application when there are specific site issues that are yet unresolved through different boards. I would like to propose, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but before we got into all of the discussion and comments, just to possibly see if this might be an amicable solution in respect to everybody, that we not take a motion at this point in time, but possibly offer just commentary as an advisory submittal that this applicant might be able to take back and consider.
David, what is that? And I agree with you, Dinos. I worry that it's a slippery slope to actually take a motion and a vote without having the BZA approval secured. David, are we out of line in that? If we were to move forward with that, and Mr. Clark, just to explain what Dinos is stating is you would basically get everything out of this meeting, just no formal motion or vote. You would still get all of our comments and feedback so that you could address it at your next submittal. You just would not be receiving the formal motion and vote if that were to happen. David, are we out of line? I mean, I guess I'm struggling as well, and I agree with Dinos. Sounds like Andy is also. I'm not sure how all of the other board members feel too, but you know, my understanding.
Yeah, that would be perfectly acceptable if that's
okay.
the way the board wants to go.
Yeah, my understanding is just that we should always have those approvals in place before our meeting. And if, and I agree, Eric probably, knows his board well and says it shouldn't be a problem. However, that could be stretched to a number of other future projects and circumstances that may not be as sure bet once it goes through the actual board. Andy, I assume you're in agreement. Jeff, Michelle, Aaron, do you have any issues with us moving forward that way?
This is Aaron. I agree with that approach.
Michelle?
I don't have any issues. We can move forward.
Okay, Jeff?
This way.
Same, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Clark, what we'll do is we'll continue with the meeting as it would normally happen, except that we just won't be taking a formal vote on the application, but we'll still give you feedback on it and ask any questions and go through everything else, which is the exception of that last step.
Understood.
Okay. And thank you for your patience with this. This was not something I think any of us knew ahead of time, so I apologize for that.
No, we didn't know either. Not a problem.
All right, so let's continue on and ask any questions specific to the application package. Are there any questions from board members?
This is Michelle. I have a question, and hopefully this is a softball, but the Greenway Trailhead, can you just explain how that connects to the trail that I assume runs on the site? Is that adjacent to the residential area? Sorry, I couldn't really follow that very well.
Yeah. My understanding is that the other sites who have built along there have built a sidewalk, if you will, nicer than most, in front of their sites. And we are finishing that through the extent of the Essex Farms PUD. What they've also asked us to do, in addition to just extending the sidewalk, is to create these destination zones, as you see it here, which they want us to put up kiosks of interesting Dominion energy facts, other facts about the history of the site, and then at the corner there of Savage and Tecklenburg, they want a more prominent corner feature that's either going to be two of the following: a water fountain, bike rack, bus stop, and interpretive signage. And so we get to pick two of those four and develop that corner that way. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. I do understand the graphic also a little bit better. You've got these like half moon areas adjacent to the street, which depict the sidewalk and Greenway Trail amenities. So thank you. That's great.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions? I did have one myself. If I am interpreting the submittal package correctly, existing elevations are around a 9, and FEMA flood zone is an 11 and an X. Where do the buildings fall? So would you be having a significant amount of fill, not significant, but relatively significant in the buildings? And are you able to accomplish that with grading?
Did you give Trey Linton availability to access to speak? Excuse me, not availability, but access to speak.
He is a panelist. He's muted currently. There we go.
Trey, can you answer that, please?
Good evening. This is Trey Linton with Forsberg Engineering. Yes, you are correct. This site does sit in a flood zone. The elevations are higher towards Tecklenburg. We haven't defined, since we're in conceptual stage at this point, we haven't gotten into the detailed grading. We would be looking at getting the site, the building elevation, at the flood elevation +2 through grading up there on that side. Luckily, we are a little bit higher on that side, so there will be some fill up there at the front. And we will, address that through our stormwater, the stormwater that we introduce onto the site as well.
Okay, thanks, Trey. And then I may have missed this in the presentation, so I apologize. the office building, will there be any like public access to it, or is it mostly just like a traditional office building for Dominion?
This is
So-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Keith.
This is a traditional office building for Dominion. You would only come here if you were someone like me trying to plan a project and you were trying to work with their engineering team on how to get distribution there. But
Understood, got it.
the average public would not attend this.
Okay, so
would
there's
not-
no one coming here to pay bills or anything like that?
They are not.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Any other questions?
I've got one question on the renderings. It appears, this is Jeff. It appears that there's a sidewalk that goes around the entire, maybe just a concrete apron might be a better word, that goes around the perimeter of the building. Is that just a rendering thing, or is that a requirement of Dominion?
It is not a requirement of Dominion, but it's for a sidewalk. What they do require going all the way around their buildings is river rock or something like that is easily maintained. They don't like to landscape or mow directly against their buildings.
Got it. And then one more question regarding the canopy on the front. Just, it seems like there's a lot of
the entry or the amenity. The amenity. Okay.
Yeah. Just curious to how you derived at the shape of it.
Well, to be honest with you, there was no programmatic requirement for doing that. We are doing that out of a request of Mr. Schultz to build a soft, as he described it, a soft feature against Tecklenburg. And so we have basically provided an outdoor employee area that will have a trellis over the top of it. And we're proposing the radius form just to soften its engagement with Tecklenburg.
Okay. I have another question. And I think this is kind of self-explanatory after the gate. The 6 parking spaces and before the gate, that's for general public to come in.
Correct.
Should they need to. That's where you would park, you and I.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, you will have to have a badge to get to the next level of parking.
I presume once we get to this level, I presume that there's a standard gate that this facility would use, and you could provide a cut sheet for that sort of thing.
Yes, sir, I can.
Is there an architectural site plan that's, I was looking at, and since it's a conversation right now, I was just curious, and I'm sorry I interrupted somebody, but I was wondering, only thing I see is looks like it's Furman Landscaping provided a site plan.
There is a landscaping, but the landscape architect with Forsberg is on vacation this week, so he really is not available to address anything. But I'll be happy to communicate your comments to him if you have any.
I was looking for something that in this, and this is just for possibly to consider for the future. There are pieces and parcels as I've walked through the application. I'm trying to get a sense from a design standpoint how the service yard is going to be buffered and isolated from view that you were talking about before. It looks like there is a storage, a place for the transformers. Is the intent that is a component? What is the concept regarding the buffering of this service yard?
Okay. And David, I don't know if you can zoom in more to the middle of the slide there, if that's possible. Okay. The concept along Tecklenburg, as you view in, it will be a combination of berming with landscaping on top of the berming. Then as you get over into the right of way, it will strictly be landscaping with plant material that does not exceed more than 15 feet in height, because that's our limitation that the transmission line division puts on us. Then as you come to the corner of Tecklenburg and Savage, our plan is to leave as much of the existing trees there as we can. And what if it doesn't screen properly, then we will embellish those two sides via, or that whole corner there via landscaping. Then as you come around to the planned south side, the residential side, because we have the Charleston water access road that we have to maintain that goes back to their site to the left. Then we'll have a pond. We really don't have space to put landscaping in there. And we've talked to Mr. Schultz, and he's allowed us to just do the opaque fence all along the south side. And then the west side, our plan is to leave the existing tree buffer. And what doesn't suffice in the existing tree buffer, then we will embellish with additional landscaping. There will still be a fence there of a more of a decorative nature, but it wouldn't be an opaque fence. It's not the intent they want. Does that answer your question on the intent?
To an extent, I would encourage you when it comes to the next presentation after approvals, possibly even maybe even a perspective to give a sense of the berm. What is the height of the berm?
Yes, sir. We can do that.
That might be helpful as well as we look through. And also, isn't there a requirement for the monumental trees that are significant trees that are being removed? And I guess I'm asking Andy and Aaron too. And
You have to maintain a certain number of trees per acre.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have 15 trees per acre.
Okay.
The one question I had, go ahead, Dinos.
No, I was just assuming that those will need to be added to the landscape plan. Is that a fair assumption?
That is a fair assumption.
Yeah. I mean, I have a significant number of quandary given the landscape plan that's in the package and what was just described.
Andy, do you mind if I interrupt one quick thing on just going back to fencing? I do a lot of work for another utility company. The challenge that we always find ourselves in is security fencing, opaque fencing, and what's allowed between that and decorative fencing. So I assume that you will need security fencing around the site as well.
That's correct.
And I can almost guarantee that our board would not permit, unless someone wants to state otherwise, vinyl slats in the security fencing. And so that's where it becomes tough to find a solution for security fencing, which is opaque. So just something to think about as you're moving through the next submittal is how to make that happen. It's something that we've struggled with constantly, and that's going to be a struggle here as well. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
No, I mean, you're kind of hitting on some of the concerns I was driving towards, I guess, is I just, there's a lot of elements, a lot of design solutions I can see here. I'm just not seeing them on the page. So I think a lot of that concept needs to be clearly communicated at a conceptual level when you start to come back, because it sounds like you have requirements that are in the PUD and that Eric has required of you, and, you know, some design considerations that Dominion has, some of which are a little off-putting, I guess. And then you have the pond and, you know, the things that we like to see these ponds engaged landscaping wise. I just see a lot of development still to be had in these landscaping plans. And
I think too, if there's an
even-
opportunity to reshape the pond and rearrange the site
Yeah.
some, I know our board's gonna wanna see landscaping on the rear of the property. I mean, Andy, I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying that.
No,
Especially given the
no.
residential use, you know, adjacent to the rear of the property.
Yeah.
All right, we're into comments. Any other questions?
Well, I think we're having a discussion given the direction we're
Situation,
going
yeah.
here.
I don't believe, have y'all received the staff comments yet?
No, I didn't send them.
No, we have
Okay.
not.
David, I don't know if you want to run through those or just send them in an
I
email.
was planning on, I could just send them to them after the meeting.
Okay, David will send you staff comments. Is there anyone on the board that disagrees adamantly with any of David's staff comments that we would take objection to in our motion if we were to be making one tonight? Or any other comments or feedback?
Can I ask one? Can I ask another question?
Not typically, but yes, due to the informal nature we're in right now.
The covered truck staging, there's a high likelihood that it will have solar panels on it. How do you guys normally view, or not view, if you can see the solar panels, what's your opinion of that? Good, bad?
I
I'll
can
let one
speak
of
to
the
my,
architects. Yeah, go ahead.
I can speak to my preference. This would be on the covered truck staging.
Yes.
You know, the biggest thing for me is keeping that array rectilinear. And I think in the covered truck staging, you'll do that. Sometimes when you have like roof penetrations and things like that, they cause a staggering of the panels.
Correct.
And would rather not do the staggering of the panels. So a consistent geometric array of solar panels is key. The fact that you see the panels is not that big of a deal. It's just keeping it a geometric arrangement of the panels and being careful about where roof penetrations and vents and things like that are.
Okay.
I agree, Jeff. This is Michelle, and as long as the roof panel matches the slope of the solar panel matches the slope of the roof panel as well.
I
Yep.
would agree too. The other thing that I might comment, this is personal, I'm not sure if my colleagues would agree, but considering that this is not a public building, the entry is awfully monumental that you're showing there. It's almost two-story, clear story it looks like. I'm wondering if a more subtle approach to the entry, since it's not a public access building, might warrant some reconsideration. And when you look at the shadow wall, the divisions, the opening of the shadow wall maybe want a little bit more, a smaller scale as opposed to such large opening, the two large openings there. May just want, and I know this is continuing evolution and looking at it, but just might want to think about how that actually comes off, because the scale is awfully large when you're looking at it.
Okay.
You guys may disagree, Adam. It's just
I think I would disagree with that. I think it's, sorry, Dinos, but I think this is kind of an interesting thing. It's semi-public. I mean, it's not, it does have a public presence. I think that's one of the more interesting things on the building, and to change it dramatically, I think would be unfortunate, or it could be.
Yeah. I guess it's just, okay, sure, and thank you. You might hear that comment again, but.
Any other additional thoughts, questions, comments?
Well, I see where this is a detail thing, but where you've got the brick base and it looks like like on this front arbor curving thing, which Eric was giving you some architectural advice on. Where the brick doesn't turn the corner, if the brick needs to turn the corner, if it's going to be on that element, and I guess I'd question if the brick really needs to be on this precast building. It seems like it's maybe a layer of decoration that you may not need. But if you're going to have brick on a column, it'd be nice to wrap it on all four sides. I also wonder, the curves seems a little foreign, so I was asking you about it before. I like the idea of the arbor, and I like the idea of the covered amenity thing. But the shape seems kind of foreign to me, foreign. One of the other things as you're kind of considering the sidewalk is it's hard to tell if it's shown on the drawings right now, but it kind of looks like it might be, and maybe on the architectural site plan. I'd encourage you to not put that sidewalk right on the curb, but come off of the curb some, if that's, I believe that's what.
It's a material change that we're just reading differently. It's meant to be the river rock is what we use in most locations where we work with them, of being around the building.
I'm talking about the greenway extension.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
Sidewalk extension. If we could make sure that's not right on the curb, back a curb, that'd be excellent.
Absolutely.
I had another thought here, and it was the big parking, the small parking lot seems might want to consider screening that parking as it's forward of the building. I don't know if my other board colleagues would feel the same.
Are you talking about the little visitor lot for you and I, or are we talking about the employee lot?
The visitor parking for you and I, the 6 parking spaces.
Your comment is we may want to consider screening it from view.
Low screen wall.
It would be interesting if that screen wall became a part of the shadow wall that's supporting the arbor, possibly. Or if maybe the parking is brought a little bit closer to the entry so that it gives it the opportunity. I mean, just thinking about it, it may be a way to work that together.
Okay, we'll come up with some ideas and present them.
And I think that's where the architectural site plan will help significantly, giving us a little bit cleaner view of how things flow and how things work.
I think too, in the next submittal, really focus on, I mean, this site's unique in the sense of it's a large storage yard, takes up the majority of the space on it. So I really think a big focus is needed on the landscape and buffering plan and fence, and just some detailed attention, even before your next conceptual submittal, would really go a long way.
Yeah, I would suggest on that south border, as it's getting closer to Savage Road, I think, I don't know if the opaque fence is the right solution for the entire south border. I think as you get closer to Savage, I think you ought to pick back up the landscaping screening and deviate from the just opaque screen. And it looks like there's some room to do that as the water service road's getting late, excuse me. Water service road meets our entry drive. It seems like there's a different way to handle that. So it's not paving and it's not just opaque fence.
Mr. Clark had asked about the 2 out of 4 items that Eric shared that he needs to incorporate. And I would assume that they would come to the board if they're a part of the project, or is that making too much of an assumption?
I would think they would be in our purview of review. I think it's more incumbent upon them to say, this is how we're providing the solution
for
our comment, rather than us participating in the solution.
Okay.
I think that's stepping a little bit outside of our normal role.
That was not my intent. My intent was just whether it fell underneath your review authority. It sounds like it.
I think it falls under several. Is it in the right of way or outside the right of way?
It is outside of Dominion's right of way on their property, but outside of the street right of way.
Okay, so I was just saying that if it was in the streets right away, it would fall under DRC's purview. But if it's in the property and it's an element of the project, I would say it is in our purview.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or feedback? Let's start wrapping this up. With nothing else, I believe that should encompass the board's feedback. David will send you staff comments. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank
And we
you.
are now going to move on to agenda item number 7, Maybank Highway at Timberline Drive, requesting conceptual approval for a new Sphinx gas station and convenience store.
So a few slides to show the location. So this is between Timberline Drive and Meeks Farm Road. And this is looking into the site. This is Timberline Drive, looking down, looking into the site again. And then this is looking down Meeks Farm Road and looking east on Maybank Highway. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. I think it's going to be Ken.
Actually, David, I'm just going to start it off quick and run through the site and landscape. My name.
Andrew, do y'all need time much beyond 10 minutes?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Ben, do you agree?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Andy. Where to go?
Oh, no, we're good to go. I am Andrew Todd Burke, landscape architect with HLA. So as you mentioned, David, this is on Maybank Highway, in between Meeks Farm Drive and Timberline Drive, or Meeks Farm Road. This sits at the top of the St. John's Commons, which is a business park. That's off Meeks Farm Road, and Timberline Drive runs into a single family community. Next slide, please. There are a few grand trees on the 3 properties that consist of this project, as well as some significant trees. As it stands now, we would not have to go to BZA for any tree removals. And the site was previously cleared at one point, but there are some, like as you can see, some larger trees that were left. If you can go to the next slide, please. All right, so here we're looking at the site plan. So we're looking at a Sphinx gas station store. You guys remember we had done one over on West Wildcat in West Ashley. This is a different layout, responding to the site that we have here. Essentially, we have 2 entrances, one on Timberline and the other on Meeks Farm. And the cross access will go beneath the fuel pumps. We have the store situated up at the road, and with the parking directly adjacent to it. It's a pretty straightforward site plan. As you can see to the lower left-hand corner, we have reserved a space for a potential future office where we don't have any designs for that building now. It's just a possible use for that portion of the site. Next slide, please. So this is the landscape plan. It shows to the left and right of the building, we're going to be installing rain gardens that are going to be capturing the roof runoff from the building. We anticipate some really good sandy soils with some good infiltration rates on this site. So we plan on using the landscape to handle as much of the stormwater as possible. As far as the stormwater goes, it's part of 2 different large common plans. So it's already kind of been accounted for in 2 different plans, but we plan to handle as much as we can on site. We also are running a bioswale on the southern portion of the site throughout the buffer. It meanders through, and we still have enough room to plant the buffer as specified. We have a tree save area on the corner of Maybank Highway and Meeks Farm Road. See that kind of large area that we're staying out of in order to keep one of the larger areas of canopy with the most significant trees in the area. And I think with that, I am going to leave it to Ken to describe all. However, we are, of course, here to answer any questions you may have on the site and the landscape. Take it away, Ken.
You bet. And we also have Greg Minton here with the Spinks Company. Greg, I don't know, I think I can cover most of it, but he really wanted to express, his desire to have this thing blend in. As you can see, if you look at these rendering things, this is nothing like what we would typically do for the Spinks, a completely new design. The next slide, if you'll go to it, shows just some pictures of the surrounding area. And then basically what you can see there is that the area across the road has no real development to it. Everything is fairly heavily wooded. On our side of the road, we have a bar adjacent to us across Timberline. That's the only building that's really of any significance along that right of way. There are a couple of residential buildings and all behind the site, which you can see the beginnings of on some of these photographs. Next slide, please. And it's just a very basic floor plan that you can see along the top of the drawing. There is Maybank Highway, the parking lot, and the gas pumps for this convenience store located to the bottom of that drawing, but basically an open plan. And what we wanted to stress here is that we're trying to really open the building up from front to back to provide a connection to the sidewalk that runs along Maybank Highway. We're going to vault that whole area there to really provide some volume and carry front to back through the building to make that connection. Go look at the next slide too, please. And these are the building elevations. What we try to do is really look at height, mass, and scale for something that would be appropriate on Johns Island and the low country architecture that we see there. We also looked at several buildings there that have been done to try to use similar materials and to try to get that feel, the low country feel there. So we're using a lot of vertical board and batten siding. We're all using some shakes there to add some texture to the corners of the building to give it a little bit of relief. And you can see the large opening in the center of the building is the lobby, which carries, in the retail area, which carries front to back. There is a small dining area there on the north elevation, which is along Maybank Highway there. And again, not a lot of landscaping shown on this drawing, but we would really landscape that and really tie that into the walkway that runs along Maybank Highway. And then you can see on the south elevation is the side where the parking is located, the entrance canopy there to bring people into the building. And then you can see the two east and west elevations, very similar treatment there. Standing seam metal roof. We're going to use the areas between the roof lines there to hide all of our mechanical equipment. And so you don't have anything there on the ground. The next slide, please. Again, here's the gas canopy, which would be open steel trusses there. And it's offset there due to some of the site requirements that we have. And again, using the wood siding and all on the columns to get that same sort of feel that we have on the building. You can see there the site elevation shows you the scale of the Crazy Owls bar that's across Timberline, and then sort of the scale of the other landscaping along that road down to Meeks Farm Road. Next slide, please. And then here are just some very basic renderings. The top rendering, the north side of the store along Maybank Highway, and the south side of the store faces back toward the parking lot. And I think you can see sort of the very simple architecture and the use of the board and batten siding and the shakes to add some interest, and then some detail there for the canopies, again, to get sort of a low country feel to it. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I had one. I see there's 31 parking spaces. What is code or zoning required spaces?
Andrew, you want to take that?
Yes, so in this iteration, Erica, there's 30, I guess there's 31 spaces for the store, and then essentially we have the exact number of spaces we need for the store, and then that future office concept down to the left would support its own parking right there in the front there.
Sure. So 31 spaces are what zoning requires?
Yeah, it might be 32 actually, or 33, but we have it. We don't have any, I don't believe we have any excess parking.
Okay.
But we are hitting the code.
Okay.
Pull it up.
Any additional questions?
I just wanted to thank you. I just wanted to thank you all, Erica, for staying as long as we have been here this evening.
We'll
Thanks
see
a
if that's
lot.
a good or bad thing.
I don't know if y'all are real tired, but go easy on us.
Question is, are we cranky or ready to get out? To be determined. Just kidding. Go ahead, Dinos.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. It's a very, I think, a very responsive solution. I'm assuming the longer canopy on the south facade is sun control?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What are your thoughts as far as the trusses at the gas pump? I personally really like the way that is a wonderful complement to the building. It's not a foreign structure whatsoever. But
well, I think that what we do, we still have some study the design through the main retail area, but we wanted to try to tie the feeling that you have there, the volume and all you have there at the gas pumps to what you have going through the building.
Mm-hmm.
And so we probably will use steel trusses on the gas canopy. I don't know exactly what we'll use on the inside, but we'll have some structural expression going through there. So that'll be lit up at night and give you a little bit of volume and get some interest to the building, on both sides of the building.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
This is Andy. How are you gonna handle that mechanical for the building?
All the mechanical will be in those two areas on either side of the main lobby. We'll have a sloped roof there and then a flat area there to hide all the mechanical units. If you can go back at the elevation, it'll show you, you see those mechanical units dotted in, they'll be hidden back there. So you won't see anything on the ground.
What about penetrations from the kitchen through the roof?
Most of those will have to work the details of that, but most of those will be also located in that area, that flat area. The kitchen's fairly light in terms of the amount of stuff that we have going in there.
Any other questions? With none, David, staff comments, please.
Thank you, Erica. Some staff observations. Staff is supportive of the height scale mass of the project, and the design direction evokes a low country feel with the metal roof, overhangs, brackets, and shed roofs at the entries. Staff likes that the building is up on Maybank Highway with the gas canopy and parking behind the building. The landscape plan is thoughtful and off to a nice start. The end of the buildings with the ample landscape planting on both ends will be attractive spaces, which will add to the architecture. Staff finds this canopy design unique and interesting as well. Staff is glad to see some outdoor seating on the street side of the building, and the brick wall offers a barrier from the street. Staff comment number one, staff likes the architectural direction of the project, but the elevations that have little to no fenestration, I'm referring to the north elevation here, are less successful. I'm also referring to the east and the west elevation with no fenestration. We understand that the coolers are inside of the wall that prevents windows. We were wondering if it was possible to have transom windows up higher on the facade. Typically, the board discourages false windows, but staff questions if they might be acceptable in this situation as another alternative. to transom windows. An earlier hand sketch that we were presented from the applicant appeared to depict floor-to-ceiling glazing on the Maybank side where the board and batten is shown. I think we just misunderstood the drawing, but we thought the floor-to-ceiling glass was attractive on the hand sketch that was presented, which we thought was floor-to-ceiling glass. Number 2, revise the employee-only doors that face Maybank Highway to appear less like service doors. Number 3, consider widening the end masses. Even if this means simply furring out the walls at the kitchen, storage, and east corner alcove, as this may help mitigate the long expanses of fenestration-less walls facing the street. The use of shake siding with board and batten siding is pleasing. However, the vertical intersection of these finishes at odd or even random locations on the ends of the building is troublesome. As a general rule, material transitions should occur at internal corners only. Consider continuing the shake siding around the end masses beneath the trim plan. Number 4, revise the awning on the end masses to extend beyond the storefront openings and for their overhang to extend beyond the associated trim below. Number 5, revise the street-facing elevation to include trim board beneath board and batten portions. Number 6, consider widening the end masses of the building. Oh, I'm sorry, I must have repeated this one. That's the same as number 3, so I'm going to scratch number 6. But I keep the remaining numbering. It's number 7. This is by preliminary review. Staff recommends either a green planting strip at the building foundation facing the gas canopy or openings in the sidewalk for palms along the curb in front of the building by the parking. Number 8, staff appreciates the nice landscape screening between the parking and Timberline Drive, but staff also recommends a 3-foot high screen wall with the planting on the street side of the wall. Some screen wall may be requested on the Meats Farm side entry as well. Staff supports the brick wall detail shown on the landscape plan. Number 9, the monument sign is shown in the median of Timberline Drive, but it needs to be located within the property. Signage will be a separate DRB review, staff review after the DRB approval of the building. Number 10, show an area in the parking lot with decorative pavers. The applicants provided detail of pavers shown on sheet 4. Preferably pervious pavers would be best. Possibly pavers laid out between across the whole site between the two, connecting the 2 entries, or possibly in all the parking spaces. But with that, we do recommend conceptual approval.
Thanks, David. Does the team have any comments or I guess clarifications or responses to staff comments?
No, I think that most of those things I think we thought of as well. I think that one thing we would like to explore is to be able to add a little bit of higher fenestration in some of those areas where we can do that. We think that's a good comment. I'm not sure, could David repeat the comment about the screen walls at the ends of the building?
At the, did you say at the end of the building?
You mentioned screen walls at the ends of the building.
Oh, I was referring to, let me see, let me go to the site plan.
And you'll get, David will send you a copy of the comments as
Okay.
well.
Okay, yeah, that'd be fine.
Well, I could just point out real quick because I don't have an image, but I was referring to this area. You have some good landscaping, but we usually like to see a screen wall, a low screen wall, like the Pierce brick wall that you were showing right here.
I understand. I understand. I thought you might be talking then in those landscaped areas, but I hear what you're saying. Okay.
And then another short section possibly over here to screen this parking.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, David, that's doable, but it's gonna have to be kind of close to where you mentioned it. There's a bunch of easements, access and sewer and water easements, as well as some electrical things along Meeks Farm as well as Timberline. So, you know, it might not be exactly be able to put kind of right on the edge where we normally might do it, but I think we could probably work something out.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so with that, we are in board discussion and a motion.
Erica, may I ask just a quick question? I'm just curious based on the comment that, that staff made of the applicant, and this may be an absolutely stupid question, so it is late, so I have an excuse. What if you were to reverse the floor plan so that the glazed side is actually to the street side? Is that an absolute problem? It may very well be, but I'm just curious to I don't have the same issue with the we've talked a lot about the issues associated with being as honest as you possibly can as far as facades are concerned, and I struggle with false windows, but I'm just wondering if that does present an option that satisfies staff as well, if it were flipped so that the south becomes the north becomes the south, and we address it accordingly.
You know,
and I don't know how the rest of the board would feel about it.
Well, I feel like the checkout needs direct visible access to the pumps.
Okay.
This is Michelle.
That's
Sorry.
a good
So
point. No, that's a great point.
it's from a completely functional standpoint.
Yeah. Do you want me to answer that? I mean, Dinos, I think that's something we can give some thought to, but I think Michelle's right there. I think that would be the biggest concern, is the relationship of the checkout to most of the folks coming in and out of the store.
Yeah. And
other than that, though, it might be a doable thing. We can certainly think about that and see what impact that might have.
And y'all, thank you. Y'all are both absolutely correct. I just, from a vernacular standpoint and from a contextual standpoint, I think it's truly a very nice addition to the area. And I'm particularly thrilled to see the correlation back again, as I shared before, to the building and the pumps, where we have struggled with that in the past with other projects.
This is Michelle again. If we're still in the board comment stage.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so we were
it's
still
late.
at the board discussion. I know.
Sorry.
We're dozing here.
I know. I do think it's a nice design, and I think that the suggestions, while they seem like many that staff has, would only work to strengthen what you have originally proposed here. I generally agree with the comment about the ends of the building and the material change. Anytime that there is a material change, you really want to, I think, break up that mass a little bit so that the material change reads a little bit more strongly. So the staff comment that in regards to the difference between the brick and where it changes at the end, I think that can just be stronger. And then the only two other comments I had are really in regards to and this is really more for going forward, less this particular application, the awning and how the relationship of that shed roof awning meets the mass of the building. I wonder if there just wants to be a little bit more space between that shed roof and the main roof, not unlike where the smaller shed roofs meet a band. They meet like a band there. So I think you understand what detail I'm talking about. It's super minor.
I do.
And then my last comment has to do with the canopy and the columns that you have supporting the canopy. I would just be careful about the detailing there and the truss depth, the thickness of those members. In the rendering, it just looks real thin to me, sitting on top of that column that's turned at a 45. You know, I want that to be a little bit beefier, and I know it likely will need to be
It
in
will.
all actuality. But other than that, those are my super minor comments to what I think is shaping up as a nice application.
Thank you.
I think that overall, this is Andy. I think that overall it's heading in the right direction. I think staff's comments will help it out and get there. It's my only comment landscape, or I guess the two comments site planning wise and landscape wise is I think you may want to study that dumpster enclosure and access to it for the truck. It just seems kind of squared up there, right behind the canopy that, you know, those trucks tend to need to move around and get in there. You know, maybe changing it, angling it a little bit so that guy has a little bit more access. You know, the other parts of that is, you know, they tend to drag that dumpster T throughout the site. And it's not the best stuff in the world. My only other comment is, you know, I know this is very conceptual palette, but you know, really study and refine your palette, especially in the large trees, you know, making sure you have availability of some of those, and, you know, just make sure that you kind of keep it. I think you got a really nice, simple plan here with the building, and I think you can keep it very nice and simple in your landscaping and how those two things relate and complement each other, and, you know, really kind of keeping in with the Johns Island vernacular of landscaping, and just, you know, kind of keep things very simple as you move forward.
Any other comments or emotions?
Well, I would gladly move for conceptual approval. Staff comments 1 through 5. Is that?
Yeah.
And then board comments, and you guys help me now. I was trying to take notes, but I'm struggling to even read the notes that I was taking. From a landscape standpoint, simplify.
Simplify and just study your palette.
Simplify and study the palette. From an architectural standpoint, Michelle, anything further than what was in staff comments?
I don't think so. I feel like, you know, everything I'm talking about is forward development, and
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But thank you.
So Dinos, just to clarify, nothing beyond staff comment 5.
Well, 6 we struck, right?
And then there's 7 through 10 as well.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
that's for preliminary.
That's for
we include
preliminary
that?
review.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, you're right.
That's
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess we do include it since the motion is for conceptual approval.
Okay, so 7 through 10 as well. So
Anything
staff
else?
comments 1 through 5 and 7 through 10, and then just the one board comment
Okay.
about simplifying the landscape.
Perfect. So we have a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments 1 through 5 and 7 through 10, along with board comment number 1, simplify and study the landscape palette. Motion made by Dinos. Is there a second?
Second, this is Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. I'll now call roll. Andy,
yes, in favor.
Aaron,
Yes, in favor.
Jeff,
Yes, in favor.
and then I am also yes in favor. Thank y'all very much. And the last on the agenda is item number 8, approval of the minutes from the June 7th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Make a motion to approve. Yeah,
All right, Dina's made the motion. Andy, is that a second?
that's a second.
Okay, I will now call roll. Michelle,
Yay, in favor.
Aaron,
Yes.
Yes, in favor.
Jeff,
Yes, please.
same. I am also in favor, and we are done. Oh, Oh, bruiser.
Thanks for
know.
all
Good
your
job, guys.
service. Oh, my God.
And thank you for continuing to work with us.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to be 7th on the list again, though, if I can avoid it.
Well, I was going to say, Ken, you're getting to be an old man. Isn't this close to your bedtime?
It is.
Aw, this is close to my bedtime.
Listen, what are
It
you?
is.
Look who's talking there, big boy. What are you doing?
I think that was one of the first gas stations to get conceptual approval in the first meeting. So maybe
Yeah. Well, I
the late
appreciate that for
meeting did
y'all.
it.
You know, I owe you one, buddy. Just wait till I see you the next time, okay? Thanks, you all. Thanks for
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night, y'all. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah.